NBC, and everyone on cable news is yelling at me. And there's only one place in this whole wide world I wanna go. That's down underneath the Florida sun in Mar-a-Lago. So call up the tower and tell my wife and son, have the taxpayers fuel up my Air Force One. Put in place my press embargo. Gotta be left alone to fun and sun in Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago, I hope the ocean don't swallow, like some say they know it will one day. Mar-a-Lago, I hope the ocean don't swallow, like some say they know it will someday. Well, the senators and congressmen are all telling me what to do. How am I supposed to know if any of the stuff they're saying is true? Sure, I like to get on the mic and gin up the crowd, but I'd rather be on the tee where those folks aren't allowed. Mar-a-Lago, I hope don't swallow, like some say they know it will one day. Mar-a-Lago, oh, I hope the ocean don't swallow, like some say they know it will one day. And it makes me feel like I got a real big penis, playing golf with retired baseball stars. And it makes me feel like I got a real big penis, but everything is gold, even the toilet bowl. Mar-a-Lago. And on Saturday night when Melania's fast asleep, I tiptoe to the only room where I really wanna be, and I crawl into that beautiful king-size bed, and I snuggle between my true loves, Ivanka and Jared. And then Sunday comes and my boss tells me we gotta go back home to the haunted mansion where pretty soon I'm gonna crack. But for now I guess I'll play my part in this puppet show and keep dreaming of the weekend where I could play in Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago, I hope the ocean don't swallow, like some folks say they know it will. Mar-a-Lago, oh, I hope the ocean don't swallow, like some folks they say they know it will.
You want like the review part behind that mask you use. You think this will never win? Well, look at me, I'm coming back again. I got a taste of love and a simple win. And if you need to know why I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing, feeling that I am dead. Looking like I'm trying to feeling like I'm dead. I'm still standing after all this time. Picking up the pieces of my heart, but not too hard for mine. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. Once I never could hope to win. You're starting down the road, leaving me again. The sense you made were meant to cut me down. And if our love was just a service, you'd be a clown by now. You know I'm still standing, feeling that I ever did. Looking up the treasure, feeling like I never did. Still standing after all this time. Picking up the best of my life, don't on my mind. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't you know I'm still standing, feeling that I ever did. Looking like the treasure, feeling like I never did. Still standing after all this time. Picking up the best of my life, don't you on my mind. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's my show, ding dong.
Hello! I'm Left Hand Stu. Welcome to the stream. It is December 27th, 2024. I hope everybody had a Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Quiz Kwanzaa, Tip Top 10, solid dignified Ramadan. Whatever you're celebrating. Festivus. What's Christmaka? Saturnalia, a whole bunch of it. Which is why we say happy holidays. It's faster, it's more efficient. Hey Chimera, how are you? Still got a bunch of Christmas candy left. I have half an energy drink, but I'm also sipping on a little bit of, which one is this? I got the Johnny Walker Discover Pack for Christmas. So I've just cracked open a sample of the, which one's this one? This one is the Johnny Walker Double Black Label, which rich, intense, smoky blend containing whiskey matured in deep charred old oak casks. Not sure what the difference is between this and the regular Black Label, but maybe a little bit smokier, I would say. Like I say that like I have any sort of like competent palate that I could really taste the difference. It's damn good. That's Rhino. But You know who's not having a good Christmas or Hanukkah or any of the other holidays that I previously mentioned? Elon Musk. Rather than spending the day with one of his many families, he decided to get into a fight with basically the hyenas are upset and they're turning on Scar over H-1B visas, which is like the sort of the foreign work visas in the U.S. and how much Musk depends on it. So he was having a fun time. There was like a space yesterday that I guess I'd or maybe it was 2 days ago, where or maybe it was yesterday, but he was on as, and it's like very clearly like Adrian Dittman, this character that he's sort of like, it's not really a pseudonym when you make it so obvious that it's you. But it's like going on he's banning people. It's hard to describe. I'll just let you listen. Like, it's like I think he got a taste of what he had been sort of feeding for the past couple of years.
Bros. And ironic.
So, like, content warning, because some of this stuff is just explicitly racist. Explicitly, like, just really, some really virulent stuff. And I think Elon is getting he's getting a bit of a rude awakening about how bad things are.
Ironically enough, some elements of the extreme legacy MAGA movement will have to deal with it as well.
Extreme legacy.
Because that's how it is.
There used to be legacy media, legacy news media. Now there's the legacy MAGA movement, which I guess is just anyone who is in the MAGA movement and like a prominent person in 2016. Which I guess is just a veiled shot right at Laura Loomer, which you'll see why in a minute.
Don't hate the fucking big tech bros. Because out of all of them, Elon is the only one that's giving all of these crackheads a fucking voice.
Talking about him.
I want you to try and pull that shit on fucking Facebook and see how long you last. You ungrateful motherfuckers, seriously. You keep crying censorship this, censorship that. You're not censored. Your takes just suck.
Yes.
Get over it. And get over yourselves. Honestly.
They're being demonic.
I'm not an
These
enemy
demons
of
I
anyone.
summoned.
But if you hate me for saying this, so fucking be it. I don't care. I'm part of what's new.
The Lions are eating my face?
You get to make that choice yourself.
This is not what I signed up for when I voted for the Lions.
Anyways,
Your face
thank you all for
party.
coming today. And
Here is Adrian. I listened to this one, and someone tell me, I don't, because he keeps saying compute, and this one's just, I think he's just, I don't know if any of them know what they're talking about. I think they're all just nodding sagely, pretending. Oh yeah, so Loomer versus Elon.
Are still clearly pro-censorship, have at Mar-a-Lago.
you're an insane person. Actually,
to contact the Trump administration and to make their voices heard about how they're unhappy with
Who is that talking in the background?
unfettered access that big tech executives who are still clearly pro-censorship have at Mar-a-Lago.
wow. You're jealous of a specific individual's position.
No.
Or
Basically saying you're jealous that Trump is no longer letting you on the plane.
specific other individuals having positions that you do not have and are never going to have.
Just supporting H-1B visas is in complete opposition to what President Trump said in 2016, and that he wants to eradicate the H-1B visa program.
That is 2016. Welcome to the future.
You're not original MAGA. You don't know what you're talking about.
You're not OG
I'm not
MAGA.
at all, motherfucker. What are you
You're
talking
new
about?
money
I'm not
MAGA.
a political individual. I'm like this thing. I'm like a
That's
UFO above like
pretty
some
obvious
sort of
to me.
strange
Some of
water
us
source
are
that just like is
MAGA,
floating there above the soil layer. That you haven't been fighting against shit. You've been spreading misinformation. You literally live in the past. You're at everything that's wrong with the movement.
No, I'm not. You don't even know what the
That's
fuck
just
the
not
movement
true at
is.
all.
You just
You're
said
the
you're not even part of the
reason.
movement.
You're probably part of the reason why a lot of people didn't vote for the Republicans after 2016. You're an insane person. Actually, as a matter of fact.
To contact the Trump administration and to make their voices heard about how they're unhappy with the unfettered access that big tech executives who are still clearly pro-censorship have at Mar-a-Lago.
Wow. You're jealous of a specific.
Same clip, just replaying.
How exactly have I said that? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm
Explain to
getting
me when I said
unhinged.
this.
I do understand I'm getting unhinged and I can talk like
No,
just some old grandma. Just someone's grandma yelling at Elon Musk's like.
I need it at the
That's
moment.
But listen,
Is it like a nom de
I
guerre?
get
Like
really passionate
alter
about
ego?
it because I can't imagine.
Yeah, probably
when
you should put
somebody
that
will
passion
come to
somewhere
my-
else into, I don't know, informing yourself, because sorry, stop muting me, by the way. What you're saying is absolute bullshit.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, again, tell me
Everybody,
where
listen,
exactly
if
I
I
said
go
what
to
you
your
claimed that I said.
fucking
You're putting
house,
words in my mouth.
listen, I'll tell you something. If I go to your
I'll tell you
fucking
something,
house
I'll
and
tell you
tell you
something.
how you're supposed to act, and I'll call you that you racist,
When
you this,
have
you
I
this, you
told
this,
you how
and
to
that,
act?
because
When have I done this?
you know you're insane. You are
You
like
sound actually
completely
unhinged, and I
insane.
hope that you probably seek out the necessary medical attention that you
You
need in order to
should
deal with
know.
this insanity, because you are a threat to the
You
fucking
think
platform.
I've waited a long time. So let me just.
The thing I keep coming back to is they won. They won. They got what they wanted. This is all of their dreams came true, and it's ashes in their mouth immediately. It's been just a little bit over a month and a half, because it was like what, November 5th. He's not even inaugurated yet, and it's already falling apart.
Let me just make my
you
point.
think you're superior. That's what it
Wow.
is. And
He
you're
I
does-
don't
not.
think
he
I'm
does.
superior to
He
anyone. I
does- he-
clearly stated I have the
No.
smoothest brain on the planet.
No,
Yeah.
you definitely think you're superior, but that's okay. The point I
No, I
wanted to make.
definitely think I'm super smooth brained, and I think I'm like the most aerodynamic thing here. You know, like those spheres that they manufacture to test like whether or not a kilogram is actually accurate. You know, the spheres of silicon. That's how smooth my brain is.
Yeah, you're the UFOs over New Jersey.
It's
Anyway,
so flat and such a mirror that you can see the future in it, and you don't like what you see.
Jesus Christ, you're obnoxious. All right. So the point I wanted to get to was, if it is in fact true that Laura, Owen, others have lost their blue.
Oh yeah, and he was removing their blue checks for like for people who are criticizing him. Oh, this was this is just a really
it's
great
so funny that he had that in common with Sinead O'Connor. Didn't he tear up a picture of the Pope?
Paisley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So funny that he had that in
This is
common
not
with
Sinead
Sinead
O'Connor.
O'Connor.
it was about all they had in common.
The rules don't matter, so I can just play whatever content I want right now.
Him doing a rendition of Nothing Compared to You.
It's been 7 hours and 15 days since you took your love away. Whoa.
So when did I even so yeah, I was house sitting / dog sitting for my sister last week over Christmas that week, from like the 21st or whatever, but it doesn't matter. So like on the 23rd, I guess, I saw this. So I was just alone in my sister's house with her dog, just singing doing this at the dock. It's been 7 hours and 16.
Go away every day and
and
drink
Paisley
all
doing Sinead O'Connor.
day. You lout! Drinking all day! You bum! And I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant! Nothing compares!
Just a picture of the Queen.
Yeah, the picture again. Nothing! Like trying to hit the high note.
He just has to do his little whistles. You know, he whistled on his S's.
Yeah.
Nothing compares.
Nothing compares to you, you beautiful hun. You beautiful Protestant bitch.
Oh. Oh no, that one's just great. This one was great too.
Brings you a new.
My mom's Scottish, and it was like the funniest thing happened, like, because I showed her this. Literally, maybe that much of the video had played. All she knew was it was a Scottish sketch comedy troupe, and they were about to do a sketch comedy thing about the BBC. And then she goes into a rant about how there's a very specific Scottish accent that all of the actors have to use on the BBC so that the English can understand you, which is verbatim the joke of this skit. Just had it on lock. Had no prior context, just immediately went into a rant describing basically the joke I was about to show her.
BBC Burniston brings you a new kind of police officer.
Shut your mouth!
No, you shut your mouth. I would never take a land of someone like that.
Wait a minute. What are you both talking in that mad Scottish actor's voice for? Why do you not just talk like a real guy? Land of? Huh? Who talks like that in real life? It's Lenny. As in, she's a linear truncheon, huh?
You're hurting my arms.
Even though I'm off at telling you, I just talk like a real guy off the streets. I don't care. I hit out with words like trousers and totties. That's me, but I'm a real guy.
You've been doing the tune, drinking. You're out on your arse.
See, there it is again. You know the only people I know that talk like you, Chief Inspector? Shitey Scottish actors. I mean, how can you not just talk like me? Like a real guy? Like your dad, your uncle or whatever, just a real guy, just pure like that, blah, blah, blah. Just pure talking like no punctuation or nothing, just being like a real guy.
Get out.
Oh, enunciating your T's, I know, aye. That in case there's any English watching. Oh, maybe I better join you, you total twat.
Real guy.
What kind of voice was that now? Real guy. Sabbath.
Sabbath. The other good Bernstein one. Not Bernus. That's how you know there was some English motherfucker trying to search it. Burnistown. Bernstein. There it is. Elevator recognition. Another huge pet peeve of my Scottish transplant mother, who has respectably refused to moderate her accent one iota in the roughly, I don't know, maybe 40 years she's been in Canada. Get out! You're hurting my arm.
What's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology? In a lift? In Scotland?
I bet the auto-generated closed captions are going to be even worse on this. And a lift in a lift in Scotland.
Ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
11.
11. 11.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent. 11. 11. 11.
That sounds Irish, no American.
No, doesn't it? 11.
Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent, right?
11. 11.
You for the same part of England as Dick Van Dyke?
Listen, yours then, smart ass.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
Smart ass.
11.
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
11. If you don't understand the lingo, away back came to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it? Away back to your own country?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
11. 11. 11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
I'm going to keep saying it till I understand Scottish, alright? 11. 11. 11. 11.
I'll just take us anywhere, you cow. Just open the doors.
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Calm. Where's that coming from? Why is it telling people to be calm?
Because I knew they'd be selling this to Scottish people who'd be going off for nuts at it.
You have not selected a floor.
Aye, we have 11.
If you would like to get out of the elevator without selecting a floor, simply say, "Open the doors, please."
Please. Suck my wally.
Maybe we should just say please.
I'm not begging that for nothing.
Open the doors, please.
Please. Pathetic.
Please remain calm.
Oh, fine! What do you want up tonight? Get him out there. Hey, just wait for it to speak.
You have not selected a floor.
Ah, Bules, you cow! You don't let us out these doors. I'm going to come to America. I'm going to find whatever desperate actress gave you a voice, and I'm going to go in an electric chair for you.
Scotland, you bastard!
Scotland!
Scotland!
Scotland! Freedom!
Going up.
That was that little. Oh yeah, that was just because I had that. So yeah, I think there was more of the Elon freak out.
You're looking out by causing a massive amount of chaos and accusing people of deplatforming all this kind of nonsense, which is not really happening for him. Under Jack Dorsey, this has nothing to do with the current state of X.
Okay, so
This has nothing to do with it. How does this have anything to do with that? You're going to say, okay, there was like some sort of rhetoric set by some people, by the way, who are not in charge of these systems anymore that you are part of right now. You're on this platform, by the way. If these people were in charge back, if these people who were in charge back then were in charge of the system today, you'd actually be suspended, but you're not.
Wait.
The tech bro space. So you define very certain massive individuals as part of the tech bro space, quote unquote. Who's part of that tech bro space? Y Combinator shut down Trump? What? Is that what you're insinuating? The Barry Stanton being banned was a justifiable thing. That was a justifiable thing. If somebody keeps posting absolute fucking dog shit, really just racist stuff without any reason whatsoever is kind of stupid. That deserves to get suspended, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what specifically they classified it as because you'd have to be behind the system and I'm not. So basically, you guys are jealous about a bunch of people getting involved because they saw that shit's getting real. Oh, by the way, about the Barry Stanton thing, I actually do recall something now. No, let me finish on this. About the Barry Stanton thing, he was claiming to be in a very specific location where the stuff that he was posting was actually violating the laws of that location. Whether or not he was in that location or not, he was at least pretending to be in that location. And because of the way that the laws are set up in the UK, they had to act upon those exact laws because that's exactly what is stated and what X's mission is going to be. They have said it so themselves, if you were to read some of their posts. Because you were harassing, targeted harassment, effectively, you were harassing Saram?
Not harassing
Why is it just Laura? Why is it just
I'm
Laura?
not harassing
exactly
him.
what you've
I'm
done.
not harassing him. I want to understand.
Well, no, you're not
Why
doing
is
it
it just
anymore,
Laura?
potentially, but you were doing it before.
It's everyone under conservative.
Information. It's a public FEC.
So you just literally admitted to harassing this dude because he was Indian. This is literally what just was revealed.
Hey, Laura, just send me that screenshot and send me your statement.
We just received it notification. That's exactly what you just fucking said.
Where did I
That's exactly what just fucking been stated.
That's not what I just.
You were reciting what was appearing on your phone apparently as a notification, and that was the reason for why your account was supposedly locked or muted for 12 hours.
It's not for understanding.
Do you have any idea how ridiculous all of this sounds, right?
No, I consider.
Do you know? Oh my god!
I consider.
That's it. That's one of those where it sounds like a yes or no question, but if you answer yes or no, you're screwed. Because you have to have the sense of mind to go, it doesn't sound insane. Because if he goes, do you have any idea how insane this sounds? If you say no, you're just saying you don't know how insane it sounds. You've fallen into my trap, Loomer, said Adrian. What is he pretending his name is again? Adrian something? Dittman.
Politician.
What is that an acronym of? It's gonna be something stupid. I kind of want to like take out a piece of pen and paper and try and figure out what word he's mixing up to get Adrian Dittman.
To be somebody who runs for office, and they either are elected or they're not elected. But he didn't run for
because you know that's how he got it.
So
he took a
he
word
was
a
appointed.
name or a word or a phrase he liked.
You know, if he's not a politician, then why are you targeting him as much?
Mixed up the letters and got Adrian
Because
Dittman.
I'm concerned about the people that are going to be advising on policy in the Trump administration.
Because that's
You're
the kind of
concerned
thing
about
he
his
thinks
race?
is clever.
No.
Then why specifically were you mentioning his race more than anything else?
I wasn't. I was highlighting the fact that he's an Indian immigrant. Maybe
that's exactly what that is.
You have to let her finish the point.
It's so funny because it's like Elon sounds like a leftist in this conversation, and it's just entirely by like comparatively to the rest of the people in the call.
It clouds his judgment.
This is what you call an admission?
Is someone
from
Russia?
And I
it's
said no.
harassing, not harassing. What the fuck?
I didn't say harassing. I said harassing.
Okay.
So literally what you just did, though. It's funny that you like deny the things that you've said. This is like very dangerous and very damaging to your reputation and anyone else who is a citizen journalist.
You can go listen to the audio. I'm reading you word for word what it says.
So, you do realize that I'm like basically in parallel hosting a space where there's like almost 1,000 people listening to the same shit right now and are basically having a fucking humor meltdown laughing about this shit, right?
Okay.
You know, it's a thing. You know that this.
All of my friends are off screen laughing as well.
You've just said was you can DM someone the
incredible
screenshot,
things.
Right? There's no if here. There's
that
no,
one made me wheeze.
The idea of you putting this in the conversation at all is completely uncalled for and just completely nonsensical.
To be clear that you want people to think you're Elon.
Adrian,
how is this like the only thing that's actually somewhat? It's something that we're still contesting.
If they
Here's a quick question:
if they donated,
why does this politics matter when he's supposed to just do things in the space of AI?
Because you don't want to.
I'm literally listening to your answer right now, and my brain is hurting from the strange cognitive dissonance that it creates. I don't even know how you live in your own skin. That's a very racist take, motherfucker. Like, god damn.
I've been listening to you guys talk back and forth. It's 1.5 billion
oh, this
people
is the
living
one.
on top of each other.
Yeah, this dude is like
that you believe that you somehow have the right to call other people various weird names based on their race.
Maybe a different clip than what I heard.
Have I said that? How exactly have I said that? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
He
Explain
said
to me
some
when I
fucked
said
up
this.
shit.
I do understand I'm getting unhinged and I can talk like
no, not neither at the moment.
But listen,
I think it maybe there might be some other external factors that may be the determining factor on whether or not he has trouble with his speech.
But I get really passionate about
Seems to be a bit of a motor mouth on this one.
Yeah, probably you should put that passion somewhere else into, I don't know, informing yourself because what... Sorry, stop muting me, by the way. What you're saying is absolute bullshit.
No, it's not.
Laura,
what you gotta do... than you can imagine because there's literally nothing you can do to offend me. Censoring and silencing you, people are just like, you're disrespecting the rules of the house.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like when you go to somebody's place and they say, you know, no salsa dancing on the fucking eating table at midnight, and you're still salsa dancing on the fucking eating table at midnight. That's kind of a problem.
Well, look, let's just ask Adrian this simple question, right? Like, what is the purpose?
But they all know who it
is. There is simply not enough talent in the United States itself to fill out these types of positions. Even if there was, the entitlement is so fucking high.
You just went from
Idiot! You should literally be fucking kicked off the space. You are nothing but an absolute drag on the conversation. You have no understanding of what's going on. You're an absolute fucking idiot. You have a smoother brain than me. That is not true. They got rid of a lot of those posts. The only problem is that a lot of people are fucking drama queens that engage with that nonsense. You have never managed an information system that large, so you wouldn't understand how complicated and difficult that is to moderate. By the way, I just looked at the transcript of the conversation that we were having earlier in regards to when you first received the notification, and you said, I got a notification from Twitter that they're deleting my post about Saram and they're also limiting my account. There you go. That post about Saram.
Yeah.
You denied that you said that.
No, I said they said that
Never heard of that
Everything
before.
fuck is the Lord.
People are
Shut
talking
the
about
fuck up.
rumors.
It's so
They're talking about
delicious.
rumors.
People are talking about
75%.
rumors.
75% are issued to India, and
Talk
there's
about
no
practice.
possible way that number should exist. It
That's
should
not
not
the, that's
exist.
not the like that's not the whole thing about the H-1B visa. It's about the
That's
H-1.
extremely racist.
It's about the H-1/4. So if somebody here comes into the healthcare or comes into a huge
H1/4. I
position,
don't even
it
know
gives their
these.
children also the opportunity to go to college. And if they don't, they have to go back. You're literally grooming people to become American citizens. That's what the H-1B visa is for.
Go and Google.
Reddit moderator wants source. Tell me where the source is for this conclusion.
Explicitly discriminating against white people, like the DEI and all
They've
this
already
stuff.
settled. They've
Oh yeah,
settled all
DEI is
the
a massive
lawsuits.
issue. I think we can all agree on that, but it has nothing to do with immigration.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm saying, like, why do you think that these people aren't being hired? Oh, wait, it has, like, the H-1B.
We can all agree that DI is bad, but that has nothing to do with me hiring foreign workers.
Will work for cheaper than Americans. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's 100% what it is. And every tech company in the United States takes advantage of that. 100% of them. Not 20% of them, 100%. It's always been that way. And it's not that we don't have the skills, it's that they simply hire them to pay them lower wages. It's that easy.
Literally, if you go up and look in the Google in the chat in the Jumbotron, you can see that literally, like last month, 3 Indian immigrants pleaded guilty to H-1B visa fraud in federal court. It happens.
Oh my God, 3?
People, like,
honestly, if I was supposed to hire you as well, I probably wouldn't hire you anyways.
No, you
That's
wouldn't
some
because you're
fucking
not
shit
a
right
U.S.
there. I would
citizen,
never
and I
hire
would
this
never
guy.
work for Elon. So there's that. And by the way, you'll be making license plates in no time at all.
Holy shit.
And by the way,
I'm gonna like
I have
borrow a
companies that
page.
last
I'm gonna like
year-
borrow a
last
page from the
year,
super
companies that I
tech bro
invested
here.
in
You know, fucking like what is his name? Mark Zuckerberg, the Zuck and
Here,
call you dumb fuck.
let
Okay?
me just
How does
chime
that
in
feel?
real quick
How
and,
does that
and
work?
let
Do
me
you like that?
explain
Because
this,
that's
right?
exactly what you do.
Sid Harth is here. He can actually verify this.
Private information.
Hang on a second. Hang on a
X
second.
doesn't
Hang on a
care.
second. Let my friend speak. Let my friend speak. You've been like fucking damn. Anyways, Alda, go ahead, please.
It's also there's a lot of people
That is not true. They got rid of a lot of those posts. The only problem is that a lot of people are fucking drama queens and they engage with that nonsense. You have never managed an information system that large, so you wouldn't understand how complicated and difficult that is
Didn't
to
you already say?
moderate.
Didn't we already hear this? Didn't they already play that clip? Are they just
By the way,
looping clips now?
I just looked at the transcript of the conversation that we were having
Oh, they
earlier
are.
in regard
I posted
screenshot. Can you show
just
me
heard
the
that bit.
screenshot of that post? Because he clearly said that there's a screenshot of the post there. So why
I
didn't
would
you
like
show
to
us
show
that?
you, but I can't send images over DMs.
Yes, you can. You literally DM'd just now what you saw on your profile to someone else, so you
I'm not
clearly
lying to you.
can, but you are
I'm
not.
trying to message you. I sent you a
Ooh,
message.
Leafs up 2-0 on Red Wings.
You can't message me on here. You're gonna message someone. If you can't message someone on X, then you're gonna message someone who's off X, and then get that screenshot
That's
to me,
not true.
just like you did with the other screenshot.
You can send messages, but you can't send photo or video messages. That is 100%.
You are denying that you can take a screenshot of what you received and send it to someone without using X. You liar. You are lying.
Grandmother.
You just lied.
I'm not
And we
lying
can
to you.
prove
I
it.
sent this
You just
screenshot
lied.
to Owen Schroyer's personal cell phone number. I'm not lying.
Oh, I thought you were. I thought you were incapable of doing that.
No, I am not capable of sending.
That's right, because you didn't use X in order to do this, and that's why I'm asking you to do the
Holy
same thing
shit,
with this
let-
thing that you have here, because you just word for word said that you have a screenshot of that exact post, because the screenshot of the post was within the place where they.
All right. I think that's enough of that. But in other news, our new finance minister and our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Melanie Joly, are currently at Mar-a-Lago. They met apparently. Where's my goddamn? There it is. They met. Now they didn't meet with Trump. Apparently, I have the readout. Where is it? I spoke with Tom Homan earlier this month. Oh no, that was the statement This is the statement from last night. They're going down to talk about the Canada's new border measure and the threat of the 25% tariff threat on Canadian goods. I have the readout. Where's the readout? So yes, so met with Howard Letnick and Doug Burgum as a follow-up to the dinner between Prime Minister Trudeau and President Donald Trump last month. Let's get those Trump Trudeau emotes going in the chat. Both ministers outlined the measures in Canada's border plan and reiterated the shared commitment to strengthen the border security as well as combat the harm caused by fentanyl to save Canadian and American lives. During the conversations, Letnick and Burgum took note of the updates provided by both ministers and agreed to relay information to President Trump. Ministers agreed to continue further discussions in the coming weeks. So, no commitment from Trump team to drop tariff threat after meeting with Joly LeBlanc in Florida. So yeah, it's the 25% tariffs on all goods entering the U.S. from Canada and Mexico is the threat. Where's the new thing? Oh, they met Friday morning. I'm also told that Joly would be having dinner with Lindsey Graham. Is the rumor I heard? Which would be because I think Graham seems to be like a kind of a point person. I don't know if it's just for Canada, but that seems to be who's being put forward to meet with Joly a lot when she goes down to on her like trips to the US. So I think Graham's pretty up there in sort of the Trump circle. Oh, Secretary of Commerce. That's who Letnick would be. Oh, yeah, and Trump says he wanted Gretzky to run for prime minister, which I think Trump thinks there would be like a conservative primary. I don't think there's... I would be very surprised if you asked Donald Trump to explain how the parliamentary system worked in Canada and he gave you a correct answer. Because he was like, he should run for prime minister. It's like, how do you think that would work? Well, I think you can be secretary just by being like a donor. Also, we don't even raise an eyebrow at it this time around. Like last year, in 2016, there would have been a huge stink that he's making the secretary of what, commerce? Did they say? Yeah, Secretary of Commerce. There's just a guy who donated a bunch, but maybe that happens more often than not. Because usually that you'd get like a big donor would maybe get a diplomatic appointment in a European country that you don't really have to worry about. Like, I don't know, send him to Greece, where you don't have to worry about the Greeks going rogue and doing some crazy bullshit, where like you're really gonna need to make sure that you have top-notch diplomatic skills to keep a lid on those like they're crazies, those Greeks. You never know what they're gonna do. No, that's like it's a pretty safe post where that person is probably not gonna screw it up too hard. Greece isn't exactly run around. I don't know why I'm picking on Greece. Could be. We'll say Macedonia. There you go. Can't accuse me of being. My dad's Macedonian, so that's yeah. When was the last time you heard of like an international incident or international spat involving Northern Macedonia? Basically never. Anything going on Twitch? No. Kind of want to play Marvel Rivals. That looks good. But we got like 2 full hours of Pulse panels. Well, hour and a half, 90 minutes. 100 minutes maybe. No, 45, that's 90 minutes. So first, top newsmakers of the year, a look back.
Hi there, this is a special holiday edition of Power and Politics. I'm David Cochran. Today we're counting down the top 5 newsmakers that dominated Canadian politics in 2024. Who drove the biggest stories and stirred up the most political drama?
I do kind of like this time of year because I do enjoy watching all of the retrospectives and be like, oh yeah, god damn. Because there's always so much stuff that happened in like January, February, March, sort of into April, that you kind of, it gets sort of lost in the fog of either you don't even think about it or you're like, oh, that was this year? Where it's sort of, you're like, oh, was that in January and February? I thought that was like December-ish sort of thing.
We've got a special power panel here to look back at who dominated this year's news cycle. Laura D'Angelo is a former advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Tim Powers is a former strategist for conservative parties. Paul Wells is a journalist
Canada's
and author.
last good old boy.
And Jordan Leichnitz is a former NDP strategist.
Jordan.
All right, gang, let's get right into it. Ranking at number 5 on our top Canadian political newsmakers for this year.
We've landed a new
Tim
deal.
looking over
It'll be
like
the
there's
largest deal
someone
in
walking
Canadian
in.
history. We've shown that political stripes don't matter. We're going to work hand in hand with the federal government. Carbon tax is the worst tax you could ever put on the backs of the people. We need to start building. This is a no-brainer. You don't put 4, 6, 8-story buildings in the middle of a community. Our government will provide every Ontario taxpayer a $200 tax-free rebate. Any government, I don't care what political stripe, wants to put more money back into people's pockets, good for them. Everyone agrees that we need a bilateral trade deal with the U.S. We have to take the threat seriously from President Trump. It's going to be a Team Canada approach. We're stronger together. We look forward to tightening up the border. All the premiers agree. We will go to the full extent,
Phoenix.
depending on how
How's
far
it going?
this goes.
Happy New Year.
We will
Hope
go
you had a
to
good,
the extent of cutting off their energy.
Good Christmas.
Okay, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, is number 5 on this year's list of top newsmakers. And Tim, it's sort of a finish strong pick with Doug Ford and the role that he's adopted as the premiers emerge more in the Canada-U.S. relationship at the end of this year.
Well, you think where Doug Ford started off as premier, we've seen chaos in Ottawa before Christmas, but there was chaos in the early days of the Ford administration. It didn't look like he'd last very long. Now, as we close out 2024, head into 2025, he is arguably the most influential premier, not just because he's the premier of Ontario or the chair of the Council of the Federations. He seems to be, as it relates to the relationship issues with the United States, leading the charge. He seems to have done a lot of work, and you and I both talked to other premiers in building strong relationships with the premiers.
Did you make it or you got it for
from time
Christmas?
to time he does freelance and used to get him in more trouble, but now it's just, oh, that's Doug. He probably has the most power that he has ever had on the national stage right now. And again, not because of just the chairmanship of the Council of Federations, but he's found a way to connect not just with Ontarians, but Canadians around their anxieties of the moment internationally. And because the federal government has been a chaotic, hot mess over the last number of months, comes across as a voice of reason often.
Which is an interesting evolution for Premier Ford. But, Jordan,
Christmas
it's
was really
interesting.
good.
There's
Nice
still
and
the
relaxing. I
Green
was,
Belt
dog
investigation,
sitting,
housing
so
starts,
hanging out with my
unemployment. These are all
sister's,
challenges in
golden
Ontario,
retriever.
worse than in other parts of Canada. He's very smartly
Got to just
focused on
hang out.
affordability, whether you think the measures are a gimmick or not. It's
Her
resonating.
place.
And now he's taking on this big role on cable networks in the United States.
So I had the
I
place
think
to
that the
myself,
strong
which is
finish
pretty
of
fun.
his year this year is fascinating when you
Just
consider
got
that
to,
some of the
play
underlying
Call of
measures
Duty
for
on her
people in Ontario
boyfriend's
aren't
Xbox
that good.
One.
And actually, Ford himself is the least popular premier in the country. So it's something very special that he's doing politically in order to sort of insulate himself and take this leadership role in, I think we can argue, a vacuum.
Has anyone seen that show, The Diplomat, on Netflix? I think I watched both seasons of that. Oh. Yeah, I'll turn up my mic is kind of low. You are correct. And I'll turn the speaker down a bit.
Of federal leadership and be seen as the one who's confronting this challenge with U.S. tariffs. I think that he's also spent his time politically on some issues.
I don't think I've seen the whole movie.
And that's quite intentional. So things like bike lanes, things like
I think I started watching it. I torrented it, and then I
the Ontario Science
fell
Centre.
asleep watching
and these
it.
are some things also that
Also,
you know,
how's the
when we
levels
saw
now?
this with the Green Belt could be his Achilles heel when he's seen to be rewarding his friends in a way that financially benefits insiders. This, I think, is more than likely going to be the thing that ultimately undoes him, but not anytime soon.
Paul, it's interesting. He's the Premier of Ontario, the Chair of the Council of the Federation, and seemingly the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, all at the same time as he goes to the U.S.
And it's not as though he's without detractors, and it's not as though he's got a blemish-free record, right? It's all blemish, and he's got nothing but detractors. I mean, in the Conservative Party of Ontario, there are an awful lot of Conservatives who
I think Get My Own Place.
Conservative as Premier, and they don't think he qualifies.
This having roommates thing is, or at least having so many roommates is it's not cutting it anymore.
At the top of the segment, drawn.
I need to get an
from various
adult
speeches,
apartment.
But that's what his actual speeches sound like.
But also, I'm also just looking forward to the election, so I don't know if I'm gonna move before.
Greatest defier of gravity, largely because you didn't see that one coming. Largely because the
Somebody went to go see Wicked with his daughters over Christmas.
Number 4 on our list
Or,
is the character from Wicked.
or I guess this was before Christmas.
There you go. Yeah. Well, look, blemishes, they don't stop for getting on a top 5 list, Laura, and we'll talk about maybe the Prime Minister a little bit later. But, on Doug Ford, I mean, what do you make of the year he's had, and certainly the emergence of this new role towards the end?
I think it's remarkable. We often use the word Teflon to describe Doug Ford and a few other politicians, but I don't think it applies to anyone quite as well as it applies to Doug Ford. You have all of these scandals, and yet, even though he's the least popular premier, he's still very popular. We're on the precipice of him winning a third majority in Ontario. We're very close.
Yeah,
to,
it's not looking good. I don't know if he makes it to
Doug Ford,
fucking February
and
at this
that's
point.
remarkable given where he started in 2018.
Actually, speaking of, one of his Liberal MPs, George Hall, my colleague, Abbas Rana, was reporting this earlier, but he's now released the letter he sent to caucus and the president of the Liberal Party of Canada. I believe he sent it either earlier this week or this morning. Here's the letter. Actually, wait. Can I read it? Well, this is so small. So this is one of his own. This is one of his like sort of backbencher Liberal MPs. Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to read it like that. 1 second. So yes, so this is from George Hall. Dear colleagues, I write to you during this Christmas break as time is of the essence. I've spoken with caucus colleagues and the President of the Liberal Party of Canada. Long ago, we lost the luxury of time or needless reflection. Over the last 6 months, I and others have made every effort to find an elegant way forward, showing respect for history, the leader, process, and our caucus. It is unfortunate our efforts, the clear message delivered in multiple by-elections by Canadians, have not resonated. It should say it is unfortunate our efforts nor the clear message has resonated. Our leadership is not hearing Canadians, and many Liberals are ringing the fire alarm. Over a year ago, Senator Percy Down gave sage advice based on wisdom gained from decades of political experience. Earlier in the year, Ken MacDonald had the courage to speak up, and he was ostracized. 6 months ago, 8 of my colleagues joined me in asking for a national caucus meeting. I thanked them for their confidence and integrity in standing up. 2 months ago, over 24 caucus members directly spoke truth to power and asked the Prime Minister to reflect. We spoke, but there has been no change. Last week, our colleague Chrystia Freeland resigned as Finance Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and released a letter of no confidence. More of our colleagues have now spoken out. Now these next two lines. Any rational individual in a position of leadership would resign. Any group of individuals providing advice based on data and logic would reach the same conclusion. Unfortunately, a small cabal have decided to pursue a reckless strategy of mutual assured political destruction. It is clear the Liberal Party of Canada is not their priority. We are a party of confederation. From Laurier to Trudeau, we have contributed to building this great country. The Liberal Party of Canada is not a movement beholden to any one individual. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau no longer has the support of caucus, and to maintain some dignity, he should immediately tender his resignation. Whew. Caucus working for the Liberal Party of Canada board should start the immediate process of scheduling an expedited leadership process which is transparent and democratic. It is an opportunity to create new energy, introduce new ideas, and test potential candidates. I and other caucus members do not support a secret conclave where caucus chooses the new leader. The Liberal caucus should elect an interim leader who can lead the government over the next 60 to 75 days. I strongly encourage the board to ratify this democratic selection. Prime Minister, thank you for your service, and I wish you the very best in future endeavors. Unfortunately, it has come to this. Sincerely, George Chahal. And then there was a second letter, this one he sent to the party president. Sachet, time is of the essence! ! Thank you for taking the time over the holidays to discuss the Liberal Party of Canada's strategy for a potential leadership race, assuming the Prime Minister resigns as leader in the near future. I appreciate your accessibility and transparency. I've had a chance to review the Constitution and bylaws of the LPC and have received legal counsel as well. It seems clear that the LPC board has the authority, subject to a significant majority of the LPC board being in favor, to vary the governing rules if political circumstances warrant. As we're in the final year prior to a fixed election date, in a minority situation where the other parties have indicated they may defeat the government, I would argue the LPC board to immediately plan for leadership regardless of the Prime Minister's formal resignation. It is my view that it would be political negligence by the LPC board not to plan for the race. It is clear now the leader of the Liberal Party no longer has the confidence of his parliamentary caucus and the vast majority of Canadians. On a final note, I appreciate the burden of responsibility on the members of the LPC board volunteers. I know from your comments you are mindful of the public scrutiny any leadership race will draw. I wish to thank them. I thank the members of the board in advance for making sure we have a transparent, inclusive, and democratic process that Liberal supporters will enthusiastically embrace coast to coast to coast. With gratitude, George Chahal. When is it snowing next? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's getting. That's about. If you asked Trudeau how it's going for Trudeau, that's about how it's going. Lost his deputy finance minister and his deputy prime minister. Not deputy finance minister. His finance minister, full stop, and his deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, and also basically like I'm trying to think of like an analogy for what Freeland was, because she was his lieutenant. Is that right? Like lieutenant, like second. She was his second in command, right hand gal, but like basically more than that, because it's like he was the charismatic leader, but we have the charismatic leader who can rally all of these people and all of these other charismatic like individuals and all these like people behind him. It's always best to have a very competent and sort of legitimizing number two, i.e., he's the young upstart prince, that first respected banner lord who says, I will raise my banner for this prince. I will vouch for his claim to the throne. She was his Jon Stark. He's Baratheon. She's Stark. Because, like, everyone's like, this guy drinks too much. He's kind of loud, blah, blah, blah. But it's just the Starks. If the Starks are behind him. Like, like, it gave him legitimacy. Or, well, not entirely, but, like, it was... People were like, okay, if Freeland is willing to back him, then maybe he's got the juice sort of thing. So it was always this kind of, like, it was... They were like a dynamic duo. So it's like, that was just a seismic sort of resignation. And it was done at a moment with which to cause the greatest impact and harm to Trudeau and his government. But yeah, this was the Vivek post that was really wild. This was, I think, sort of that set it off. This was on, like, Boxing Day. So, the reason top tech companies often or maybe I think this was sort of like in reaction to some of it. What sucks is I think his immigration policies will end up helping Canada in the long run, but he didn't realize housing was so hard to build and was needed for all the immigrants. Well, I think it was more like one of the things that sort of is unmentioned. Because it's not because it's like the responsibility still falls heavily on the federal government. But one of the other things that goes unmentioned is like that there was a massive demand for that immigration, for foreign students, foreign workers, in part like post pandemic, in part simply to like stave off a recession. Like, I'm not an economist, but I've had, like, people who understand the economy explain this to me, and it's been, like, one of the, like, main things that kept Canada from being in a technical recession was that we had such large population growth. And that population growth was largely, like, fueled by new Canadians and immigrants. So it's one of those things where it's like we're dealing with this is the hangover of those sort of drastic measures that were taken post pandemic to sort of stave off potentially a worse situation. That's sort of the I guess charitable argument for why it was done. I don't know if it was so much that they just didn't realize how hard it was to build housing. I think it was like there was the best option, right? And like, but you could like, and when I say best option for the Liberals, because some could argue that because we did all that to artificially ensure we didn't fall into a recession, we now could be in a worse off situation. And again, don't ask me which one of those is correct. Would it have been worse if we didn't have such high immigration rates and we had fallen into a recession than we are now? Or would we be out of it by now? Who knows? So yeah, this was his, like, this is so funny. Like, it's like, I don't know how, Vivek's gotta be in his, like, early 40s, right? How are you still this hung up on high school shit? So, all right, so I'm just going to read this. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation, in brackets. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over... But here's the thing, this whole thing, because he's like... You have to assume, like, in his argument, he's comparing foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native, which is just like... but, like... This whole argument is him comparing, in his mind, like a native... No, I'm not even going to use that word. But like a someone who was born in America, but it's a jock for some reason. Some like cool guy jock, or Corey from Boy Meets World inexplicably, and a immigrant or first generation engineer. But wouldn't it be like a quote unquote American engineer versus a foreign born or first generation engineer? He immediately switches into an apples and oranges comparison. Yeah, no, you saw basically the same, like, sort of jokes being made. I think it was more like I think it was probably like it was more, because there seems to be genuine like that thing seems to have like struck an actual genuine nerve in America. In Canada, I didn't see any sort of like genuine, what I would say, outpouring of support, or like a large amount of it. Most of it is like people doing like the online memes and stuff, and I guess that's mostly just because like our experience of healthcare is different. But it's not like that. I saw like a resolute and like consensus condemnation of him in Canada either. No, I don't think so. Because it's like there's no... Like, there's still health insurance CEOs in Canada, but it's like... I don't think we're... Were they going to get a gun? It's so cold that most of our CEOs don't, like, walk anywhere. It's just car to inside to car. So American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. At least since the 90s and likely longer. So you mean when you were in your... which is... Like, that's why he says in the 90s, because that's probably when he was, like, about 10-ish years old. It would have been turning, like, about 10, like, because I was born in 1992, so because all of these things he's sourcing, he's like, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, or the jock over the valedictorian will not have produced the best engineers. The culture that... I guess he is still... comparing engineers to engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World which is Corey. Or Zach and Slater over Screech, which someone pointed out that I forget, I think it was Zach or one of the two had a higher SAT score than Screech canonically. Or Stefan over... Those are the same person! Stefan is Urkel. The same... A society that venerates Jekyll over Dr. Hyde. Or wait, Dr... Yeah. Wait. Because all I can hear is the Jekyll, Hyde, Jekyll from Arthur. And now I can't remember which one's the doctor. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Yeah, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yes. It's a society that venerates... I screwed it up, but it still made me laugh. A society that venerates Mr. Hyde over Dr. Jekyll. Spider-Man over Peter Parker. Fact. I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity, and their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, this is like more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. Which, if you don't know, Whiplash is the one about the dangers of pursuing greatness and perfection at any cost. That's a pretty major theme of the movie. For this kind of perspective, him citing Whiplash is like those dude bros who watch American Psycho and go, I should be doing more sit-ups when I wake up in the morning. It's like you didn't absorb what this movie was trying to get at all. You saw a really sexy Patrick. Oh wait, goddamn! It's because Patrick Bateman is Psycho. Oh my god, what is Batman's name? What's his first name? See, this is Null Days. I don't even know who anyone is anymore. Forgetting all names. But they saw him in American Psycho, and they're like, I need a better skincare routine. This is what he's doing right now by citing Whiplash. Bruce Wayne. This is Patrick. Okay, so Patrick Bateman is the character in American Psycho. Wait, Christian Bale. Okay, okay. Yes, Christian Bale. There we go. I was way off. So, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. More weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons. More books, less TV. More creating, less chilling. More extracurriculars, less hanging at the mall. Although someone pointed out that Vivek Ramaswamy spoke to white parents the way white parents have been speaking to black parents for past couple of decades, and white people realized they did not like it. Because there is a sort of you could sort of Mad Libs this to be just be a screed on how on perceived shortcomings in black parenthood. Because it's like, and you could still get at me like, you can't assume that he's just talking about white people, and it's like, tell me he's not talking about white people. Tell me he's not talking about white people. Yes, sure, he threw in Stefan over Steve Urkel in there, but the fact that he doesn't realize that those are two different characters makes me suspect. So most normal American parents looks, and also like when Vivek Ramaswamy imagines normal American parents, what do you think he's imagining? What do you tell me honestly? What do you think he's imagining? Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. Most normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s, or even now, who raise their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Okay, see, he's doing it. He's doing it too. I'm not being. Who do you think he's imagining with those two groups? Oh, he says it explicitly. We'll have he's like, it's Asian. He's saying like it's white parents versus Asian parents. Oh no. What did I just do? I just lost. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper. So yeah, that's what this whole thing was them getting mad at him being upset, or I guess defending why actually it's good, or it's white people, white families' fault, and white culture is the reason why they're hiring more immigrant engineers that they can conveniently pay less. It's nothing to do with that. It's about all this shit. It's not the other C word, i.e. cash and capital. It's culture, obviously.
We're talking about the Angus Reid approval ratings, right?
Yes.
Because in the public opinion polls in Ontario, Tim, he is going to cruise past, Marit Stiles and Bonnie Crombie unless something dramatically changes, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, that's what our Abacus data shows. But just picking up something Laura said, I mean, I think the last big prominent Ontario premier would be Bill Davis. Mike Harris may disagree with that. I mean, no offense, Mr. Harris, but what a difference in styles, right? Yeah. If Davis was cerebral and of the mode of the 1980 leader, could speak at length in sentences that actually fit together, Paul, and paragraphs that work.
Tough to montage.
Ford, even before Polyev, found a way to connect with people, right? And the way he speaks to them and speaks with him. And that homespun, I was a counselor, here's my cell phone number. It's the moment for that. Again, Paul's right to suggest what his political pedigree is anybody's guess. But
him sounding downright wistful,
like he is hearing them and connecting with them, and that's really important right now.
I think your point about counselor, he has that
Doug, he's so dreamy.
Sensibility and connection with normal people. Quick thoughts?
I was going to say, I think to Paul's point, it's exactly the magic. He's not ideological. He's not partisan. He's a populist in really the purest sense of the word, and that allows him to do some things politically that other politicians would have trouble in having.
Like, give people free money. Just giving them money. Just be like, hey, here's something for you. And no one goes, oh, this is electioneering. He's trying to buy my vote. Like they immediately did when Trudeau did it. Nobody was like, this is so fiscally irresponsible. It just kind of expected. It feels almost genuine from him. Though he's a very, he knows what he's doing. He's not stupid. He's not a stupid man.
So things like reversing himself and apologizing, going back on things that prove to be errors once they're floated in the public opinion. He can do that, I think, in a way a lot of politicians can't. Doesn't mean that he needs to be loved, but his careful calibration of keeping the Ontario Liberals and NDP exactly in balance is going to help him sail through to victory.
The admitting you made a mistake is the last thing politicians like to do, but sometimes it's the best thing a politician can do because it humanizes you.
It's also very hard to do it well, though, and he does.
This is true. This is very true. Okay, Doug Ford is number 5. Coming up, we continue our countdown of the top political newsmakers of the year. Number 4 is coming up next.
I wonder who 1 and 2 could be. Could it possibly be? This is a good, because it's going to be either Polyev Trudeau or Trudeau Polyev in the 1 and 2 spot. The safe bet is to say that the biggest newsmaker of the year is the Prime Minister. I think they're gonna do pull a fast one on us. We're not a fast. They're gonna zag when everyone expects them to zig. I think they're gonna do Trudeau number 2 and then Poilievre as the number 1 newsmaker. We'll see, but I think they're gonna surprise you if you think that obviously the CBC is gonna make Trudeau the number 1 newsmaker. And maybe there'll be egg on my face at the end of this, but of this, Canada's top political newsmakers of the year. Oh no, it shows the title in there, so I don't want to look
special holiday edition
at
of
the
Power
timeline.
Politics. Today we're taking you through the top 5 newsmakers that dominated politics in 2024. Number 5 was Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Let's get on to the number 4 political newsmaker of the year.
Who's ready for affordable homes, affordable food, affordable gas?
Just fucking, my bracket's immediately blown up. I'm immediately wrong. He's 4th. So wait, I guess, oh.
A big talker and a
So wait, who's gonna be... Now who's gonna be 3 and 2? I don't even know. I don't know what to think anymore. My whole 4th? He's 4th? All right. Was there a vote? Who voted on this? Who voted on this? I want to recount. This is stolen. Must have been a big dump of votes in the middle of the night or something. This is what is happening here? The DNC get its hands on this?
And he divides to distract from all that he has broken. Everything on which the Prime Minister spends gets worse and more costly. Common sense conservative governments will approve our resource projects. We will repatriate the production and paychecks to this country.
Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
There's still a little spin there.
Conservative leader Pierre
number
Poilievre comes in at
4?
number 4 on our list of top newsmakers. The Power Panel is back with Jordan Leichnitz, Laura D'Angelo, Tim Powers, and Paul Wells. Jordan, you could argue...
That's it. We're doing January 6th to the CBC building.
Be much higher on this list, even number 1. Dominated.
That's a joke. Disclaimer, that is a joke. Nobody go to the CBC building. I will not be held responsible for any of the Wellington Street regulars.
And the Conservatives, so
Do not do it. Do not do it. I'm right in the camera.
18 months of that lead is remarkable. And the fact that they've been able
not
to
go harass
is equally
anybody.
interesting. I think one of the things that's notable
And say it was my idea. I had nothing to do with it. That was all on you.
Ford we talked about, he's not necessarily
I'm gonna
loved,
clip this.
but he is loved in
So I can send it to
comparison
the police.
Justin Trudeau. So Justin Trudeau is also a really important player in Pierre Poilievre's popularity.
Laura, what do you make of this? I mean, a lot of his popularity and success this year has come at the expense of the party to which you belong, but he has been a consistent messaging and polling machine and a fundraiser.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Machine. It is almost robotic, the way he is able to stick to his message, use his 3-word taglines that resonate. It is constant beating Canadians over the head with his message that is landing, and it resonates. I think part of what Pierre Poilievre has done this year that is so impressive is understanding.
Also, I never actually said hi, Rogan. I just started talking to you, but hello. I hope you had a good Christmas holiday. Or Hanukkah.
And I think one of the things that's so interesting is...
Or Ramadan.
Even if he's not
or
always
Tip Top
the center
Tet.
of the news, he is
Or
always
Psalm.
in the news.
Oh no, I did it out of order.
Every federal politician in
Which one did I
Canada is
miss?
responding to
Now I
Pierre
have to do it again.
Poilievre every day.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, Paul, he's had an uncanny ability to read the mood, meet the moment.
Crazy Kwanzaa, that's the one. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Crazy Kwanzaa, Tip Top Tet, and Solemn Dignified Ramadan. I don't think so. When is Ramadan? It's not even till the end of February. But maybe sometimes it's earlier. Like sometimes it is sometimes. Can Ramadan be in December? Oh, see? In 2030, Ramadan will be observed twice. It will begin on January 5th, and then again on December 26th. In 2031, it will begin on the 15th, and on 2032, it will begin on December 4th. Huh. Because I knew they're all different calendars, but that's interesting. You can have like 2 Ramadan. You can have like... the exact date of Ramadan varies by location and depends on the sighting of the crescent moon after the new moon. That's the 9th month in the Islamic lunar calendar. Oh, but that must suck, though. Having to, like... But I guess you get to, like... You can still eat, like... Because, well... Because if you're doing it the earlier in December, I guess you do Ramadan. The less you have to... Because if it's before the solstice that you start, then you have much less time that you have to actually fast. And much more time that you can eat. And depending on... Like, if... Moving to Alaska as a Muslim, so you just can... You don't have to fast. Oh, it's fucking dark the whole time. The sun did come up, so I just kept eating. I wonder if that works. Does that work? See, now I really want to, like, I need an Islamic scholar so that I can ask him, if you're a Muslim living in Alaska, you're the one for some reason. You're a scientist doing some like deep sea ice core drilling. Do you still have to fast if the sun doesn't come up? Even better question. The great Mel Brooks questioned the Jewish philosopher Mel Brooks posited how Judaism would work in space. We all remember his exclamation, "What about Jews in space? Space, space." Well, what about Muslims in space? How does that work? How do you do wrong? Well, can we just let's see, like, is that something that there would be an answer for on Google? How does Ramadan work in space? Because it's like, but then it's like, like if you're on a space station and you're orbiting the planet, presumably there's a point in the orbit where the sun is obscured by the earth. So I guess that would be your nighttime then, right? Because that's technically you're on the night side of the earth. So I would assume that's how that would work, right? I think we can logic that one out. Does it really? Send me the link. I want to know how that works, because that's very. I'm very, like, we're on a whole giant, but it's now I just want to know, because like one of my favorite sort of like annoying factoids is about I think it's the Burj Khalifa, where there's like apartments on the Burj Khalifa, and like the building hands out like sort of calendars during Ramadan, so that you know when sunrise and sunset is each day. And for residents above a certain floor, they have to hand out a different calendar, because technically the sun rises and sets later, because you can see further over the curvature of the earth. Harvard has a case study. Astronaut Sultan Al-Nayad sees 16 sunsets daily on the space station. How will he observe Ramadan? Where's the answer? Huh. Wait, what is happening? Oh, I think chat just crashed for a second on me. Oh, but I guess because there's an exception. During a stay, Muslims on Earth will observe the month of Ramadan, a time of fasting, prayer, and reflection that runs. You can even go to, like, into April. There will also be two Muslim festivals: Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan, and Eid al-Adha, a celebration of the annual pilgrimage that Muslims make to Mecca, the Holy Land in Saudi Arabia, that begins June 28th. As Al-Nayadi explains, as an astronaut, he fits the definition of a traveler, excusing him from attempting to observe Ramadan at the same time as earthbound Muslims. Huh. I mean, I guess that makes sense, where they're like, fasting is not compulsory if you're feeling not well. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, where it's like, oh, you're going to die if you don't eat? Well, better hold on till sunset. No, you need to... Yeah. But that's interesting. See, we're all trying to figure out if it's like where he is, but it's just like, no, he's... All I was like, he's on the plane. What are we going to do? What are you going to do? He's traveling. And also, that was probably like... Also, if you think about like when those rules were made up, like if you've traveled like to some like other country from whatever your homeland is, you don't know if it's still the same, if it's like when it's daytime for you, it's nighttime, or it's daytime for them. So it's like, I guess you sort of have to work some of these rules in there. I mean, it should be surprising. There's so like that's the thing I think that unites all three of the Abraham religions is how many sort of like workarounds and hacks there are. Where it's like, you gotta do this. But there's one neat trick you can do where you don't have to at all.
And put it into a slow...
God's word is law. Unless you've read the fine print.
And a policy
or figured out a way to trick them.
You can then drive home his message with. It's funny because he hasn't always...
Muslims in space should face Mecca if possible, but if not, they should face the Earth generally, or just face wherever. To decide when to pray and fast during Ramadan, the scholars wrote, Muslims should follow the time zone of the place they left on Earth. Yeah, that would be... It's like, okay, we're the mountain time zone. Now we're in like, because the rotation of the Earth underneath you would be going so fast. There's no way you could track like what time zone you're supposed to be above, or even I guess try to face Mecca because it's moving real fast. There's one book. This is kind of a hard pivot, but it's on the same of like space. So it was like this book series called The Night Watch, where it's like there's like a magical Cold War taking place in Russia. So there's like the forces of evil and the forces of darkness, and they're like in a Cold War. So if like the good guys use a really powerful spell, they've signed like treaties where now the bad guys get to use a really powerful spell. So it's like there's this weird like level of like, because he's like magic cops. He's a magic cop for the good guys. So he gets sent out to like deal with crimes committed by the evil magic guys. And there's like werewolves and all the different supernatural shit you could want, and it's a bunch of like very Russian centric, which makes it very interesting, especially with the whole Cold War with magic dynamic. But there's like the way the magic system works is the people who can do the most magic, the most powerful magicians, have 0 innate magic, or have the least innate magic. The more, so it's like people, like a normal person who can't use magic is just filled to the brim with magical energy, and they're just radiating it because they have so much of it and their body is producing it. The less your body produces naturally, the more magic you can use, because the magic that other people are producing is like flowing into you, and then you can push it back out and like do stuff with it. That's sort of how they explain like the power scaling thing. So there's like a bad guy who his like plan is he's going to sneak on board a spaceship, go up into space, and cast a spell that requires like it's a sight-based spell, so he can cast it on everyone he can see at once. So his thing is he's going to go up into space and cast this spell on everybody, and like he's super powerful magician. And he goes up into space, but he's up there by himself, and he realizes when he's up there up in space, he can't do any magic because there's no magic up there. And I always thought that was a really cool, like, magic system. And I know that was a really hard pivot from, like, how do you do Ramadan in space, but that's just those are the leaps my brain makes constantly. It's maddening up here.
He's been the most effective communicator. He was...
I mean, you've seen the stream. You know what I'm like.
In charge of handing out checks before the 2015 election for Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and he turned his office into a video production facility, and it went nowhere. He purposely lay low for a couple of years after the 2015 Conservative defeat, and it wasn't obvious that he would be as effective as he has been. And yet he's defined politics, and to some extent not even only federal politics. I mean, the only explanation I have for why Sean Fraser is leaving federal politics is, on top of all everyone's got family they want to see more of and stuff. Yeah. But it's that Poilievre personalized the link between Fraser and 2 hot button issues, which are housing and immigration, and he ran out of any possibility to make his own message. Valérie Plante is not going to run again as mayor of Montreal. I think that started when Pierre Poilievre started telling anyone to listen that she's incompetent. He is somebody you don't want to cross. And he is, it's not obvious to me how he could lose steam between now and a federal election.
Yeah, Tim, it's been...
For the people going like, oh, he's peaked too soon. It's like, all right. Sure.
A level of discipline on messaging and focus, and of the caucus, to be quite frank, right? You don't see MPs stopping to scrum if they're conservative, but it has
at worst plateau. But this is a pretty goddamn high plateau.
It's been that.
It's like one of those
work for them throughout the year.
It has indeed. Look at a few points.
Sort of stone towers from up where the dinosaurs were.
Ascend like this since perhaps Brian Mulroney in 1983 to 84. Interestingly, of course, in those circumstances, coming off the current Prime Minister's father with Mr. Turner in there. So certainly Pierre has been advantaged, as Mr. Mulroney was, by a Liberal Party in decline. That said, in the case of both Mr. Mulroney and Pierre, they have not stepped poorly or wrongly at this juncture, which speaks to that discipline. Picking up on what Paul said, Paul and I, and you to a degree, David, have seen Pierre over the last 20 years. He has certainly grown as a political figure. There were many, Paul is not wrong to say, who never necessarily envisioned Pierre Poilievre being on the precipice of being the Prime Minister of Canada. He himself, I think, has, and you know, you have to admire his conviction for all of this. What's going to be fascinating now is how he keeps this momentum up and how he manages expectations should he win, because there are a lot of things he has said.
The risk is that, and then like, people made a lot of comparisons between the the UK and Canada, with how the Tories went down there and the ascendancy of Keir Starmer in Labour, and it's like a mirror image sort of thing because the Tories happen to be in power, and they were the incumbents. But when Keir Starmer got in on a wave of discontent with the incumbent, shockingly, the discontent didn't go anywhere just because they changed incumbents.
And he's promising to do, which all opposition leaders do.
So it's like, yeah, he's done a very good job of channeling Canadians' anger and directing it towards the current government. What happens when that anger is aimed at him specifically as the current government?
Because of the base and the audience that he has,
that's assuming people are still pissed off by the end of this year, 2025,
prove problematic, but I think
or 2026.
Challenge should he become
more likely, depending on how late the election is.
Is managing the expectations, because like Donald Trump promised to make life more affordable, as Poilievre is promising to make life more affordable, and now he's saying, you know, it's going to be tough to bring down the price of groceries because the reality of what you can actually do, even from the seat of power, to change certain economic fundamentals is tough.
There's a lively ongoing debate within his own Conservative caucus that I'm only very partially privy to about what kind of prime minister he's going to be, whether he's going to be a prime minister of conviction or a prime minister who, like Stephen Harper, keeps finding reasons not to do stuff. And if he does follow through, will he be able to keep the public with him? And will he have any patience for the complexities of policy files, or is it all going to be marketing? A lot of what he does, he's superb at a certain kind of shtick. And the shtick won't work as well when you're in the chair. When you're the Prime Minister of Canada and something goes badly wrong, it doesn't help to say, look, I need you to understand that the mayor of Montreal is a jerk. Like that, you know.
Yeah.
And this is something I hear from people on his team.
Well, I wonder about that, Laura, because one of the things, you know, as a member of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. Poilievre doesn't spend time speaking with people who don't agree with him. You can't avoid that in the Prime Minister's office the way you can in the opposition leader's office. That's going to be a thing he's going to have to adapt to if he wins.
Yeah, you can't avoid that at all. And I think even in the last couple of months, we've seen Pierre Poilievre wobble a little bit on his messaging and wobble a little bit when things aren't going his way. We've seen some pretty combative moments with the press gallery. We've seen a little bit of gleefulness, I would say, particularly over the past week. And those tendencies right now we only see momentarily. When he's in the big chair, you have to answer for your decisions every day. It's easy to be on this side, or easier to be on the side that he's on now, critical and pushing. It's much harder to have to answer the question every day.
Jordan, he's going to have to face an election campaign at some point in 2025. What kind of a test do you think that might be for Mr. Poilievre next year?
Well, power is a great form of discipline, and I think that's really what you're seeing from the party. The Conservatives can be a divided bunch, but none of that is in evidence right now because they're winning. And I think I would expect that to carry through the campaign. I think that where it's going to get a little trickier is...
What was that phrase from Trump? Winning will unite us?
Some of those decisions that are...
Well, I mean, that didn't last long for the Republicans, or at least the Elon wing of MAGA.
To be less popular. He's been cagey in the past, for example, about what he's going to do around social programs. Is he going to cut things like pharmacare, dental care, child care? Those are going to be tough decisions that are going to come with real consequences when he's actually in the chair. The opposition, though, has had a really tough time making that case, and I think, you know, there's an interesting discussion to be had about why there's not negative advertising happening to make this point.
Yeah.
But without that, it's tough to really bring that risk home to voters.
It could be because he has all the money in politics in Canada. That's just a guess. Okay, Pierre Poilievre, number 4. Coming up, we continue our countdown of the top political...
And who the hell are you going to put
Number 3 and number 2 are next.
What are they like? I don't even know what they're gonna put in there. All right, what's up? I'm gonna get another drink. I know. I won't do that. What can I put on while I do that quickly? Yeah, just West Wing clips. There we go. This will be harmless. Brain numbing for you.
Welcome to the White House. Morning, welcome to the White House.
Good morning, Toby.
Also, take this moment to say, Little Drummer Boy is an S-tier holiday Christmas carol. Absolutely goated song.
I know.
One of the best to ever do it. Rumpa-pum-pum, motherfuckers.
The president's in the mural room. Thank you. How would it be if I just mentioned?
No.
Christmas shopping on your own at a bookstore?
Deal with it. I'll be right back.
Merry Christmas, Mr. President.
Merry Christmas, Nancy. Merry Christmas, Nancy. Hi.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
Apparently, I've arranged for an honor guard for somebody.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
No, just tell me, is there anything else I've arranged for? We're still in NATO, right?
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
A homeless man died last night, a Korean War veteran who was wearing a coat I gave to the Goodwill. It had my card in it.
Toby, you're not
Took
responsible.
an hour and 20 minutes for the ambulance to get there. A Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps, 2nd of the 7th. I got better treatment in Panmunjom.
Toby, if we start pulling strings like this, you don't think every homeless veteran will come out of the woodwork?
I can only hope, sir.
When is this thing?
I'm going to pick up his brother and go there now.
Mr. President, sir, your absence in the other room is conspicuous.
Okay.
Toby, I'd like to come along.
Also, Toby, absolutely goated. We love Toby. He's the best character on the show.
I didn't cut my hand on a class.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, you just say happy. That would be funny. I just say happy holidays, and now just say happy Hanukkah, just to piss them off. I just skip saying Merry Christmas. Oh, who had the... there's one comedian who had a really good one. I'm just doing a stab in the... Oh, it is Pete Holmes. That's who it is. Yeah, he had a really fun one. I'm not saying how... Yeah, this one's good. No! Was it him? I was sure it was Pete Holmes. Maybe it wasn't Pete Holmes. Someone had a good bit, and I don't even want to attempt it because I know I'll butcher it. All right, who's 2 and 3? All right, our next one. Shall try the Gold Label Reserve, a blended Scotch whiskey.
Welcome back to this
Master Blenders
edition
Reserve.
Of Power and Politics. Today we're taking you through the top 5
Salud.
newsmakers that dominated politics in 2024. So far, we have the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, at number 5. Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre.
My whole bracket's already ruined, so
and
now
now
it's just...
for our number 3 newsmaker of this year.
Christopher Elon?
This government?
Who the what?
My government?
Or maybe so Trump at number 1, maybe? Trump and Biden?
To vote with
Who the
middle-class Canadians, and they're choosing to vote against them.
There's always going to be lots
fuck
of
are we-
reflection after a tough loss.
Who
but
is
there's
2 and
also so
3?
much to do.
Or 2 and 1 then?
Conversations that we're all having as liberals are going to continue.
I'm so confused.
The Liberal government totally united on holding the Conservative Party to account.
We're going to continue to have great conversations about what is the best way to take on Pierre Poilievre in the next election. But that'll happen with me as leader.
What is it you want to do in a 4th term that you couldn't do in the first 3?
Oh, no,
Drake.
It's continuing to meet the moment.
But it's Canada, so you would assume they're all Canadian, but maybe not.
Number 3 goes to the country's
Just
leader,
making
Prime
news in
Minister
Canada?
Justin Trudeau. The special holiday edition of the Power Panel is back.
Or the Queen? No.
Tim Powers and Paul Wells.
Not more
Prime
than
Minister
Trudeau and
always brings a
Poilievre.
lot of news. This is also a year we had a lot of news happen to him. Your thoughts on Justin Trudeau at number 3?
I'm a little surprised he's number 3 and Pierre Poilievre was number 4.
Stephen Chase, maybe?
It feels like this was a year where Justin Trudeau responded to Pierre Poilievre.
Or Rob Fife? Bob Fife?
Things that the Prime Minister
Keep wanting to call him
and his
Robert
government
Fife,
had to
which is his
communicate
full
with them
government
that
name.
were Great, in my opinion, like dental care and pharmacare and a school food program. Canadians don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen right now. And a big part of that is the palace intrigue. When will there be an election? Will Justin Trudeau lead them? But a big part of that is that Pierre Poilievre has driven that narrative for Justin Trudeau.
Right. Jordan, what are your thoughts on the Prime Minister and his 2024?
What a rough year.
Yeah.
I think what's so interesting to me is that, of course, he's closing out the year in a moment of particular crisis. But over the course of the year, we've seen the Liberals and the Prime Minister try a number of things to turn the ship around. You know, they've tried mini shuffles, they've tried turning to more populist economic policies, they've tried everything except, of course, the one thing, which is changing their leadership. And none of it has worked. And so I think that the crisis point that we've arrived at the end of the year wasn't just one that was made in a day, of course.
President Xi? Putin?
Of poor
Who the fuck could it be?
Things that have left them in the position that they're in right now.
Tim, every time he tries to shuffle his cabinet, then they lose a minister and then end up losing a by-election, and then they lost the deputy prime minister and the finance minister.
Yeah, he's a guy you'd love to play in a game of cards because he never gets a full deck these days because they're gone everywhere. But first I want to know, has he found his jaw yet from the punch he took from Chrystia Freeland just before Christmas? Look, three things about the prime minister. He has moved from being loved in 2015 to being loathed. There's lots of reasons for that, but that's where he is. And he is not just disliked, he is loathed, other than by, apparently, according to Ipsos read, 19% of Canadians. That is staggering if that number is right. Secondarily,
that's oof numbers.
And his team, I think, still part of the reason he hangs on is he sees the Pierre Poilievre, Paul and I were talking about in a previous segment, the 2004, 2005 chirpy, annoying MP who hasn't grown politically. And I think that's a major mistake. Finally, I think, you know, the one thing the Prime Minister can maintain some credit for at the moment, the reason he hasn't gone is he still controls his party. And that, perhaps, right now is the one legacy item for him that is good. It's going to fall to pieces in different ways when he goes. The Liberals will rebuild, but why he stays and how he maintains the passion for the job is baffling to me.
Paul, I know you have enough thoughts on Justin Trudeau to fill a book, because you wrote one this year. What are your thoughts on this? I think he's going to have a good story to tell about his time as Prime Minister from the perspective of history, right?
The speaking tours are going to be very well paid. That's what I know.
Serious first draft of reconciliation.
Leafs better still be winning.
Canadians. Serious effort on climate policy.
5-2, unreal. Hell yeah, dude. 5-2 for the Leafs.
Survived COVID. But the longer he drags this out, the longer it's going to take before anybody is in a mood to get to that part. And he has shown, I would argue strongly, since
Trudeau is well protested. Oh yeah, they will be. Well, yeah, we'll see.
To adapt to changing circumstances.
I feel like I can't tell if that's the thing where it's like I'm not convinced that the current anger will sustain itself if he's out of power. I don't think people will still be like chasing him around, protesting him.
Circumstances, to recognize his own weaknesses and to read the political terrain. It's funny, once on a trip down to Washington, a delegation went down to visit with Barack Obama. On the way back, he bragged to reporters about how well he had read the political environment on his way to becoming Prime Minister, and that he's compared himself to Trump at the time. At some point, that just went away. He's really got no sense of where Canadians are, what Canadians think. And to the extent he understands that there are Canadians who disagree with him, he almost always chalks it up to disinformation. Someone's feeding them a line. They don't really understand how great things are. And once you start reacting that way, it's done. Yeah. Well, you talked about changing circumstances. Laura, you talked about your surprise he was number 3. That's because number 2 and number 3 are kind of a package deal. Here's number 2 on our list of top political newsmakers.
Canadians have economic whiplash. It has been a really hard time.
Methinks that may have been there may have been some last minute tweaks to this one.
Our economic plan is working. We need to invest.
Though in fairness, it was one of those she made about a year's worth of news in about 3 days.
Prime Minister has my full support.
There have been multiple reports that the Prime Minister's office is questioning your abilities as finance minister.
Or was that a yes or no as to whether you had...
I guess I should have said that. I almost kind of feel dumb.
I do have the confidence that I need to do my job effectively. I feel I have the support.
But I would have put her at like
to do my job.
3 or 2 because obviously. But yeah, this makes sense.
Statement on
Freeland.
It's one of those things where it's like, I think it's one of those, it's like the Looney Tunes where, like, she's pulled the ground out from underneath it, but we're in the stage where Trudeau's still looking in the camera and, like, running in midair. The cartoon gravity hasn't kicked in yet, I don't think.
This morning has decided to leave cabinet, to leave her position.
Or it could be one of those things where it's like you pull out the Jenga piece and you're sure it's going to collapse and then it just wobbles and then you're like, still? It's still standing? You never know.
Finance Minister and Deputy
You're
President.
going, I'm less and less. I was so, up until like 9:06 on, what was this? This, like, 9:06 of December 16th. I was like almost 100% both feet firmly planted in the camp of this government is going to hold on by the skin of its teeth with the support of the NDP until probably the fall. And then that last week happened and I was like, well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Be really hard.
We have a good relationship with Christia over the years. I just want to wish her all the best.
So I'm proud of her record, and I look forward now to assuming the responsibility of being Minister of Finance.
Former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Chrystia Freeland finishes this year by zooming to one of our top spots. Laura, because a Zoom conversation with the Prime Minister went sideways, she was not on this list when we did the initial draft, but she finished the year with an explosive exit from cabinet, and this is why 2 and 3 go together right now. What are your thoughts on Chrystia Freeland?
I mean, I've said it before on your show. I think December 16th for Chrystia Freeland was a political communications masterclass, which isn't something we often say about her. No. But she
maybe, I guess,
her resignation in the form of a letter that was scathing to the Prime Minister. But was also clear and concise. It came across as very authentic, and she stuck to that message all day long. She also, has potentially toppled the Liberal government, and certainly has put one of the final nails in the coffin, I think, of Justin Trudeau's leadership, whether that's now or, coming up shortly. And she is coming out looking very, very strong and very, very much like a leader herself.
Paul, just on the day when the Postal Service resumed, a letter from the Deputy Prime Minister was a hand grenade designed to inflict maximum damage with the way she wrote it and the way she did it and when she did it to the Prime Minister and the government.
Yeah, I'm not the only one who would say I didn't know she had it in her. Although she's a journalist, and she worked in the Financial Times Bureau in London for many years. And in London, this is how you leave cabinet, is with letters that take this tone and are this specific. She may have revived what would have been a seriously faltering shadow candidacy for the Liberal leadership at some point. She in the week that she left, she showed up at 2 Liberal functions and got standing ovations from crowds that had not really been giving her a lot of standing ovations in recent months. And she joins the growing number of former Liberal cabinet ministers who have at last said what they thought. And she leaves the dwindling number of cabinet ministers who haven't yet said what they thought about all of this.
Jordan, it is remarkable that, a finance minister who really only popped up twice a year in a lot of ways to be in the news was on Budget Day and Fall Economic Statement Day. And on the Fez, as we call it, she made this dramatic and devastating move, but with real political stiletto finesse.
It is Shakespearean. The whole drama of what has happened between her and Trudeau, when you look at the arc of their working relationship together. She came on as a star candidate when Trudeau was not a sure bet.
2013, right?
That's
in the by-election. Yep.
And she's been by his side ever since, carrying some of the most challenging files, not just finance, but as foreign affairs minister as well, leading the Canada-US renegotiations. And then as finance minister, she's been his surrogate when they've campaigned. She's been able to carry the mantle for a lot of those things. And in return, what did she get? She got demoted over a Zoom call for somebody who may or may not have actually been
Freeland is an honorable woman.
Position to come into cabinet. It was a brutal
Friends, Canadians, countrymen.
Part of Trudeau and the team around Trudeau about how she was going to accept that news. And in return, I think she's delivered just a fatal blow to Trudeau's leadership and to this government.
You know, Tim, to Paul's point about her being a former journalist, I have one of these letters ready to go for when I leave the CBC. But
I'm happy to be your surrogate.
Yeah, well, no, you might be in it. No, I'm just saying. But this was something, right? And this is why, you know, there is Freeland and there is Trudeau. And as I said when we introduced him, you make a lot of news as Prime Minister, but news happens to you. And he was blindsided by this, and the question is whether they can recover in any kind of fashion.
Yeah, it was a bit like Mike Tyson walking into the ring with Jake Paul and didn't fare so well. Yeah. But Jordan described it as Shakespearean. I'd describe it more as Lutherian. Not since Martin Luther nailed the letter to the door of the church and said, hey, we need reformation. Right. Has it been the case? Look,
it's a pretty fun analogy too.
Nobody knew she had it in her to this degree. I'm not sure I'd necessarily ascribe it to her journalistic skills, because not often, fellas, journalists are great politicians. No offense.
We can write withering critiques.
You can, though. And apparently, letters still matter over Instagram. But it's. What's fascinating
but she did post it on
treatment,
social media,
because I think this helps us understand more why he's having the troubles that he did. Again, let me invoke Mr. Mulroney, and we all know the history there. When Mr. Mulroney was down in the polling numbers, and more people thought Elvis
Minecraft
was
soon.
alive and supported the Progressive Conservatives, he never had to deal with any of this. Why? Because he focused on managing his caucus and understanding human relations. What kind of disconnect do you have to have when you Zoom call your arguably your most loyal soldier, other than Dominic LeBlanc, and say, hey, by the way, time's up. Sorry, you do this on Monday. Mark Carney's coming in, apparently, though Mark did not come in, of course. And then you think that a person who is as proud...
Yeah, how did they think the Zoom call went? And how did they think it ended? Apparently there are multiple, but how did they, what impression could they have gotten from those, like, however many Zoom calls, that they thought everything was still okay, and she was still going to present the federal economic statement on Monday, like everything was normal. It's wild.
As well-educated, who's fought as many battles for the Liberals as Chrystia Freeland did, is going to sit there and you'd say, yeah, sure, I'll do that for you on Monday. And the best you can do is apparently give her a title and no department, no resources and all of that. That speaks more to the miscalculation and misunderstanding that Justin Trudeau has about where his power base was in 2015 compared to now.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Mulroney had his Lucien Bouchard, but it was over a totally different set of circumstances. You know what I mean? It was the fundamental question about Quebec. But, you know, here, Laura, she quit cabinet, quit the posts, stayed in caucus, went to that caucus meeting, hugged the Prime Minister at the end of that caucus meeting, and in an email blast to people who supported her, said, this is not the end of the road. What road is she talking about there, and how might that affect Justin Trudeau?
Because she just went from, like, like, you gotta think, no one would want to go from Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, arguably the number 2 and number 3 most important roles, probably say the number 2 because I think Trudeau created that. I don't think Harper had a deputy prime minister. I think Trudeau created that role just for Freeland. To go from that to just any old backbencher, just one of the team in the background. No. This is a woman who, like, I think up until the rumors died down about a year ago, but prior to that, for about maybe a year, there were rumors she might take the top NATO job. Or was that before the invasion of Putin's invasion of the Ukraine? I don't know. I forget the timeline. But there were like those were like rumors I heard from like people who like don't just like pull shit out of their ass. Like they were clearly hearing it from people they took seriously. So I mean, still rumors, and still however many second, third, fourth hand or whatever. But those they were I'd like. So yeah, like unless you're taking a back road to get a quicker way forward. You don't do that. You wouldn't like that's not a thing a woman of her like caliber would be just content with.
And showed up at the caucus party.
Yeah.
And by all accounts had longer lines for hugs and pictures than the prime minister did, which says
she arrived like a conquering hero.
She sure did. Yeah. She sure did. I mean, listen, I don't know.
No, he got a standing ovation.
Christopher Freeland is going to be running for Liberal leader, whether that is while
But it's like that. It was like those are one of those where it's like he was going to get a standing ovation. Like, I mean, if there was ever a time he may not have gotten a standing ovation, it would have been that speech, and he still got it. It was perfunctory nonetheless. Like it wasn't like people were forced to do a standing ovation, but they were gonna like it was sort of like it was inevitable, regardless of kind of the speech he gave, unless he just got up there and was like, "Go fuck yourselves," and then left. That would be probably one of the few instances where he may not have gotten a standing ovation.
Leader, and she, attempts to take him out, or whether that is when he or if he chooses to step back on his own. But Christopher Freeland, with that letter, and then with all of the subsequent moves, with that letter, she
now Chahal's letter
impressively changed her own narrative for time in government. She rebranded herself in a really impressive way, and then the next set of these steps, showing up at caucus, showing up at the caucus party.
Holy shit.
Really clearly
that space was 5.5 hours long. Good Lord. Also, apparently there's a part where he calls himself Elon.
Primary focus is basically not just a problem with the product, but it seems to be a problem with Elon and anything Elon like, given that I was literally the first thing she posted about. It's kind of obvious at this point that you have more of a problem with the person than you do with the product, which I think kind of invalidates any
signals that she is gunning
All
for.
right, who's number one?
And Paul, like, that takes guts, to do what you did that day, because the collateral damage of that hand grenade.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's not going to be able to not slip up. It's over the course of 5.5 hours.
And then to show up at the caucus meeting. But I wonder, like, as Laura says, rewriting the narrative from the finance minister who didn't have the political and the communication skills, which is what a lot of people said about her, to sort of being a heroine on the fall economic statement day, and now a possible leadership contender.
Yeah, now if she faces serious opponents in a leadership race, or failing that, if she becomes the leader and faces, Pierre Poilievre, she's going to have some splaining to do. Yep. She was the minister that she was for all the years until she quit. She seems to have been ready to deliver that economic statement without many qualms until he asked her to make sure it was the last thing she ever did as finance minister. She does have a mixed record, which will come back into view as the events of December 16th fade into the hindsight. But
where were you on the morning of December 16th?
One of the things I've been kind of lamenting about this prime minister is that he seems never to understand that surprise is an option. Stephen Harper, Jean Chrétien would change the terms of a debate on their feet in the House of Commons a few times a month. And since Justin Trudeau has been incapable of doing that for the last couple of years, he has now seen what it's like to have it done to him.
Yeah, news happens to him, right? Yes. As much as he makes news. Jordan, your thoughts on what's next for Chrystia Freeland? I mean, we don't know if there's going to be a leadership, but it seems like she's in the mix now in a big way.
So she's now the unofficial leader of the rebellion, and I think that we could go Star Wars here, but this has absolutely, as Paul and Laura have said, this has really elevated her and covered, I think, a lot of the political skills that she lacked over the course of her time as finance minister. Now, if she runs for leader, there's no magic there, right? She still is not a great political communicator. Maybe
she's benefited from some decent rose-tinted glasses since this letter.
She's still out of touch with the lived reality of most Canadians. So that baggage is not going to go anywhere for her. And I think that you'll see that come more into focus as we get more distant from December 16th. But for today, she's absolutely changed the terms of the discussion and put herself in a leading position.
Tim, last 30 seconds to you.
Yeah, what's the trajectory from here? We're in the holiday period. She had a big bang. She's rewritten, as Laura said, her narrative a little bit, but she still has a long history of being central to all these key government decisions, which, when an election comes, will be put to the public to assess.
Okay, when the election comes, we know it's going to be sometime in 2025. We just don't yet know the date. But coming up, we're going to continue our countdown of the top political newsmakers of the year. Number 1 is next.
Who the fuck could it be?
Welcome back to this special
Is it
holiday
Fife?
edition of Power and Politics. Today we're taking you through the top 5 newsmakers that dominated politics in 2024. So far we have Ontario Premier Doug Ford at number 5, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre at number 4, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is number 3, and it's a package deal because his former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, is number 2. And now the number 1 political newsmaker of 2024.
This trial is rigged.
Duh.
We have long been taken advantage of by other countries. They want Crooked Joe out of the race. Kamala, you're fired. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president. We can't have open borders. If it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country. Brought some of our compatriots along with us. They're going to do a beautiful job for you for the next 4 years. We will make America great again.
In the number 1 spot, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. The special holiday edition of the Power Panel is back with Jordan Likeness, Tim Powers, Laura D'Angelo, and Paul Wells. And Paul,
I feel like that's just kind of cheating.
Donald Trump's end-of-year Facebook montage is going to be incredible. He has rewritten the laws of political gravity, avoided political and criminal accountability, and he's now going to be the most powerful man on earth for a second time.
Yes, and he's going to annex Canada.
Yes, yes, the 51st state here.
The big question in 2025 is it a different Donald Trump? Is it going to be a different kind of government from the one that he led from 2017? A lot of people rounded up and motivated by the Heritage Foundation hope that it will be a very different presidency, that essentially the Agenda 2025 playbook will bring order and purpose and effectiveness to his presidency that lacked the first time around. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then the people who don't like him are going to have even more reason not to like him, and the people who like him are going to have more reason to celebrate. But just the fact that he was able to come back after being impeached twice, after 34 criminal convictions, after having at least gazed benignly on an armed assault on the Capitol, well, it's a hell of a thing. I mean, it's the greatest. It's literally the greatest comeback in American political history.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yet it's happened. And and people may wonder, Jordan, why we've got a U.S. president as the number 1 pick on a Canadian political show. Look what he's done to the Canadian political agenda already. NATO, the threat of tariffs, the consequences.
This feels like recency bias. This list
is going to make Roxham Road look like a trickle in terms of what could be headed this way.
He's absolutely going to be defining the Canadian political scene for the next year and likely for the next 4 years. You've already seen it. It's fascinating the degree to which I think there were many in the Prime Minister's team who hoped that Trump's election would prove to be a springboard for the Prime Minister to regain some control, to get out of a reactive stance and to regain some popularity. That hasn't happened. I think in large part the blow that Chrystia Freeland dealt on her exit has derailed that. But you can see that there's both danger and opportunity politically for people in Canada and their reaction to that. We've seen the premiers taking up that space, Premier Ford. We've seen Pierre Poilievre looking uncharacteristically uncertain how to deal with Trump. And yes, on a policy level, absolutely. Those tariffs, if they're imposed, will be devastating to the Canadian economy. And Canadians are following this really closely. They understand and have a lot of anxiety about what this is going to mean for their jobs and their pocketbooks. And so politicians are going to need to respond.
Tim, it's completely rattled and shaken the Canadian political agenda, and he's not even officially in office yet. I mean, if the prologue is anything what the 4 years are going to be like, it's going to be a rough time.
Well, and the current obsession with the president-elect of just about every other day, mentioning that Canada is the 51st state, is annoying, if nothing else. I mean, if this is how foreign policy is going to be done now, I'm sure Henry Kissinger's rolled over in his grave about 3 million times thinking about it all.
It's every night, too.
Though, right? I mean, Trump hasn't, as you said.
Or not every night, but it's late at night when he does it. It's like 3 a.m. I think the last time
when
he tweeted.
Was a reality television star and imported it to the most important democracy in the world and is going to govern that way. And this time without the same sort of, if there were guardrails that were there before, because he's only got 4 years, as far as we know. Not to be hysterical, but look, you have to give him marks for
There's any president who would try to get rid of term limits just for themselves.
He's a brilliant
to be Trump.
Political communicator in a world where he can't be held to account, despite the best efforts of your colleagues across the border. Facts don't matter. A construction of a sensible narrative doesn't matter. He connects emotionally with people in a way, or enough people in a way, that he's built this base that is so powerful. The last thing I'd say, he's also a product of the post-COVID era of politics, where anger came to the surface and it had nowhere to go. And Trump has harvested that in many people and used it to his advantage.
Look, if you go back to his days in New York in the 80s, Laura, he's probably done more media than any human being in the history of the world, right? From there to now. And to use his words, this is going to be an enormous challenge for Governor Trudeau, or maybe Governor Poilievre, depending on how the election goes, to deal with over the next little while.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that is interesting looking at this list, the other 4 people on this top 5 list have made news in their own right. They've responded to news. This list next year is probably going to be Donald Trump in the #1 slot, I would imagine, and 4 people for how they responded to Donald Trump, because he's setting the agenda worldwide. You are one of many shows doing a roundup, and I would put money on the fact that Donald Trump is #1 on probably every single one of those shows. And
it's a cop out.
Maybe in 2008, I don't know that there's another person in memory that has that.
Although I guess if you did this for 2023, they wouldn't have. Probably, if I went back and Biden probably wasn't on this list.
And that is going to drive the decisions and decision making in Canada for probably the next 4 years.
It's interesting, Paul, to look at the Obama comparison, because his election was this sort of like huge leap forward for progress on equality in the eyes of a lot of Americans, by electing a black man to that office. Trump is pure disruption. Right? In that the Democrats tried to say it was a threat to democracy, and a lot of Americans said, well, democracy as it exists ain't working for me. So let's break it up a little bit.
Big fat quiz of the year is out. Oh my God. Oh, fuck yeah. All right. Well,
a lot of people went to Washington.
I know what we're doing tomorrow.
Billing themselves as disruptors and departures from business as usual. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and a bunch of others. And George W. Bush, and they, in the eyes of a plurality of Americans, they represented business as usual. And so this guy came along and said, I'm actually going to be nothing like those people. And he has won twice. I know there are people who disagree, but to me that puts a large burden of introspection on the people who did everything they could to beat Donald Trump, to ask themselves why it didn't work.
Yeah, Jordan, he kind of, going back to some of the other conversations, there's whatever you think of Donald Trump, and he is polarizing, he is who he is, right? He doesn't apologize, he's unapologetic, but that is the authentic Donald Trump. There's an authenticity there that people believe in, whether they should or not.
Absolutely, and it's his ability to connect. He doesn't talk like a politician. He talks like I don't know, like your drunk uncle at
I probably threw him out of a bar on George
Street. But,
oh my God.
You know, I think that there's
I would have. Oh, Tim Powers, the bouncer, is just such an incredible. He literally is Wayne from Letterkenny. It's nuts.
Hunger for that authenticity, and to what Paul was talking about. Look, I think that voters are not feeling that the institutions of democracy broadly, and we can speak about this in the United States, are serving them very well. And so I think there's a lesson here for progressive governments that if you are not capable of delivering, if you don't bring the change that you promise to bring, the backlash can be more than just political. Now we're staring down a genuine crisis of democracy in the United States. Trump is coming in better armed with information, with a clearer policy agenda, and with people who are ready to get in there and dismantle major government institutions in a way that I think many agree is going to have a very damaging effect on people's lives. But the reason that he was able to get that political purchase was because people felt betrayed by the promise of previous governments.
Well, it's interesting, and it's a much larger conversation, but Tim, I remember reading an essay in the New York Times about saying that Trump offers solutions free from moral constraint, whereas progressives offer moral constraint devoid of solutions. And he basically said, I'm going to help you, don't worry about everybody else, and that has an appeal.
Well, he appeals at a time when everybody wants everything instantly. We all pick up our phone, we want to hit a QR code, get what we want. He speaks that language, which also comes from his experience in the media and the like. He knows how to connect with people. But I mean, it truly is concerning. If in Trump 1 there were old, experienced hands who were going to keep things
there's so much
straight and narrow.
Power and Politics we can watch too.
They didn't. January 6th decide. Now look at what we are getting, right? You have Elon Musk, yes, great commercial success, but his view of international relations isn't that far off Donald Trump, calling our Canadian Prime Minister, what a tool. I mean, that's great, guys, that the high school lunchroom is coming into the debate.
No, it's interesting, and all those old hands, they're all signing letters saying he's a fascist, and it didn't matter. It's been a very disruptive time, and we are out of time. I want to thank the Power Panel for being here, Jordan Likeness, Tim Powers, Paul Wells, and Laura D'Angelo, and thank you all for watching. I'm David Cochran. Thank you for being here for this special edition of Power and Politics. More CBC News to follow right here on CBC News Network.
There is that Islander accent coming through. Power and Politics.
And welcome to a special holiday edition of Power and Politics.
Power and
I'm
Politics.
David Cochran. 2024 started poorly for the Liberals, and it got worse as it went along. The governing party lost ground in the polls. They lost key seats in key by-elections. And then they lost the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister on the day of the fall economic statement. Chrystia Freeland's stunning resignation was a punctuation mark on what has been a troubling story for the Liberals, a story where the conclusion on the future of the Prime Minister and his government has yet to be written. To dive into the year ahead and check the political pulse of the major parties, I'm joined now by our party insiders.
Oh, can't see the shit.
Is a former Liberal ministerial staffer and now with Cant Strategies. Melanie Richet,
hey,
former director
wait,
of
did we already watch
for
this?
the New Democratic Party.
No, it's 6
now
hours
a senior
ago.
consultant with Earnscliffe Strategies. And Fred Delory, former Conservative campaign manager and partner at North Star Public Affairs. All right, during the show, we're going to assess the state of each of your parties and pick some issues to watch in 2025. So let's start with those governing Liberals.
Every leader, every party has a best before date. Our best before date is here.
They have an opportunity to vote with middle-class Canadians.
My government will continue to step up on the fight against climate change.
Watching the Conservatives win in St. Paul means that, like, everything we're working on could be thrown in a trash bin.
The Liberal Party, as is the Liberal government, totally united on holding the Conservative Party to account.
What is it you want to do in a fourth term that you couldn't do in the first three?
Oh no, it's continuing to meet the moment for Canadians.
People have had enough They've tuned him out.
That wasn't the answer people were looking for.
We're going to continue to have great conversations about what is the best way to take on Pierre Poilievre in the next election. But that'll happen with me as leader.
Chrystia Freeland this morning has decided to leave cabinet.
The next steps are that he should resign.
I think he needs to go, yeah.
Okay, so what could the next year? that's a lot in 2024, Greg. And look, just to let the audience know, timestamp this conversation. We're having this before the Prime Minister has given a final answer and before he's fully shuffled his cabinet, other than to put Dominic LeBlanc into finance. So just bear that in mind as you're listening to this conversation.
So wait, when did this happen?
So there's still a lot of unknowns, Greg. What do you think?
When did they record this? So this was like the middle of
have any hope of coming back?
like 2 weeks ago?
I don't think what
So it was only posted 6 hours ago.
Needs to be done. I don't know how much more a leader needs to hear and see happen before you get the message. The intro showed a clip of your interview with the Prime Minister, which I believe was in June.
June, yeah.
And it was kind of remarkable in itself that a sitting Prime Minister showed up in a studio live and like took a bunch of questions. And we were told that there were going to be improvements on communications back in 2023, that this was a big issue. Media relations is a big part of it. I know everyone wants to say it's all comms. Comms doesn't fix everything, but you know, if there's deficiencies, you fix the deficiencies. Like a lot of people at this table, I have a background in communications, so that's probably my bias and what I notice. When the Prime Minister answered that question, it didn't meet the moment. And that was a bit troubling. The Prime Minister would, on one hand, go to the foreign interference inquiry and, you know, just exemplary. You know, you think, okay, this guy knows his file, and that's great. And then he would do an interview with Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, a podcast where he answered a few questions, and some of his answers around why the Liberals lost the by-elections were troubling. You know, not enough time on the ground, I think, and again, like the buck stops with the PM, because, you know, not only do you call the date for the by-elections, you also cause the by-elections. In the cases of, you know, shuffling Carolyn Bennett and David Lametti out of cabinet. Advertising. Well, the ads didn't work on me, says Justin. Well, yeah, but we've known Justin Trudeau in Canada. If you were alive and watching the news in 1971, you're aware that, you know, he was, you know, born, you know, first child to a sitting, you know, Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau. So it doesn't compute. So your next step is, if he is not hearing this, who around him is telling him what's really going on? And it's been a lot of the same people for a long time. And you know, poli-sci profs will be shocked that I paid attention to, you know, the JFK era and Bay of Pigs and the concept of groupthink. And groupthink is where you have a lot of people who are like-minded, but the challenge function is no longer in the room. Right. And I love this challenge function as a communications boss in politics or in the private sector. Before you do something big, you want to say, are we missing anything? So that person who doesn't have a lot of experience, but, you know, is thinking about something, has the courage to say, what if they come back with this? Right. And you go, you know what, you're right, we got to add another paragraph, we got to change our approach. That doesn't seem to be happening. So that's the big concern.
Right, like what if we ask Chrystia Freeland to leave finance and she doesn't want to go, Fred? That seems like the sort of question that maybe they should ask, right? Because, you know, the comms, the tactics, the ads, all of these things, the people telling him what's going on out there now are his caucus and some of his cabinet ministers, and he still doesn't seem to be listening because the country, based on all the data and all the outcomes, wants him to leave.
It's incredible. The clips that you just showed here were all Liberal MPs calling him to go.
Yes.
It is we've never seen this before. A sitting Prime Minister being bombarded like this. He has at historic lows in the numbers. His own caucus, his right-hand person just left cabinet. It's disastrous for them. If they're trying to figure out the path to victory, it's gone. It's not there under him. I don't think the Liberals can recover at all. I don't think a new leader's going to help. I think they're too far gone if he had left a year or two ago.
Recover in what sense? Recover to win, or recover to raise the floor and maybe come second and be the official opposition in the next election?
It is possible. If Trudeau were to leave, they could become the official opposition. I think that's possible. With him, the question is, are they in third or fourth? The Bloc Québécois will be the official opposition of Trudeau is the leader of the Liberal Party in the next election. It's the Bloc is growing. We can talk more about that later, about nationalism in Quebec or separatism is taking more root there. There's this situation where Trudeau's not rising actually to the moment. If he thinks the government is supposed to be doing that, and that's what they're doing, he's not doing it.
Mel, it's fascinating. To Fred's point, the clips we played were all Liberals, and there's more since we built that montage. And when I was a younger man and reading the Globe and Mail and Ed Greenspan was writing about the Martin Chrétien fights, it was always a senior Liberal insider on background. Now they're on camera, on the record, and on the move to try to force the Prime Minister to leave. It's a remarkable thing, and this continues next year if he doesn't go.
Absolutely. And, there's been a bit of conversation leading up to this moment saying, oh, is it fair for them to be out in public doing this? But from what we understand is they've done it privately for so long, right? And they've done everything they can.
Since the caucus retreat in London.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And they've done, it sounds like they've done everything that they can to raise this with the Prime Minister's team, internally with people that they think has weight to make things change, and nothing has happened. No messaging, no caucus management, nothing. You talked about meeting the moment. That's the words that kind of hit me in the face a little bit. I don't know that any Canadian thinks that you've met the moment in the last, I don't know, I want to be fair and say year, but it's probably more than that, right? The meeting people where they're at, I don't think anybody believes that to be true from this current Prime Minister and his government. So the fact that they're saying it out loud, I think it's because they've tried and they haven't gotten anywhere, and now they have no tools left. And there's been a bit of, some folks are doing it for their own partisan interests. Some folks don't want to lose their seat, etc. I'm sure there's a lot of that, absolutely. But I also think that people are seeing what we're potentially up against with a Conservative Prime Minister, and they're saying, hey, we're going to give everything we can, and we're going to fight to make sure that Pierre Poilievre doesn't have an easy path to Prime Minister, and are saying we got to do something.
So Mel, the answer to that question where he says continuing to meet the moment, I took that to mean they believed the programs they were doing, largely with the push from the NDP, as you've repeatedly pointed out, was meeting the moment by meeting the needs. But elections have to be about the future. They never really gave that to me in June. I still don't know if he's given a better answer as we do this in December.
Yeah, I think we've been saying that for as long as this panel has been assembled. Why are you running again? If people like us who are paying as close attention to politics as we are don't know why he wants another 4 years, other than he doesn't like Pierre Poilievre and he doesn't want his vision of what Canada is to be defeated by Pierre Poilievre, I don't know what hope the Liberals have that, folks like my parents or folks who are watching the news understand why this guy's running again, understand what he's going to do for people, because you straight up asked him, and all he was able to say is continue to meet the moment. That to me doesn't mean anything, particularly when he hasn't been able to show that in the last few months.
Oh, it's because there's not enough water?
These great programs that have come to fruition.
Interesting.
But again, not because of his government, but because of Jagmeet Singh.
Greg, it's interesting that if you listen to the Prime Minister's motivation for wanting to stay, it's to stop Pierre Poilievre. If you listen to the caucus's motivation in wanting him to leave, it's to stop Pierre Poilievre, right? And for the elections I've covered, where Justin Trudeau has been the leader, he has outworked his opponents, like 6, 7, 8 events a day, limitless energy. He will not have that advantage with Pierre Poilievre. And you talked about the lack of shift to communication, the lack of move on ads and tactics. Does the team look like it has the urgency and the energy to take on a guy like Poilievre and his team in an election next year?
No, they don't. And the reason I'm being emphatic on that is the way that the shuffle of Chrystia Freeland was handled. I don't know anyone who can understand why you would, you could argue her second biggest speech of the year. And one business day before it's to happen, you're telling them that they're done. So you were going to expect, as her boss, that she's going to deliver this speech and do all the media and do the best job she can, knowing full well she's being demoted. How did they not think that it was going to be seen as a demotion? If it had happened, we would be talking about this as a demotion. And it went from, that the Conservatives would have called for her resignation based on that deficit. Right. And instead, they're praising her. They cheerfully walked into this propeller, and that's why they've lost so much confidence of their supporters, because they can't see what is just blindingly neon obvious.
On the demotion part, I found it interesting that she was supposedly offered the Canada-US role, which should be a major role. We're looking at a potential huge catastrophe with the 25% tariff threat. But the fact that it was told that she wasn't brought to Mar-a-Lago because she isn't well liked by the Trump team, and that isn't someone they want on that file, I think really, if that was out there and they didn't bring her there, and then they offer her that role, I think it really reinforces how the role isn't real or wasn't meant to be real at all, and it's quite insulting.
Yeah, I wonder, Mel, if it was the demotion or was it the demotion coupled with the prelude of all the leaks, particularly in the Globe and Mail, from people inside PMO apparently and inside senior ranks of the government, expressing dissatisfaction with her political and communication skills, which she then demonstrated to her full capacity on the day she left. Because I think she had demonstrated the willingness to suffer some things as long as she wasn't being deliberately humiliated. But this, I think, probably just became too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not funny, but interesting that the blame on communications has been laid at her feet the way that it has. I'm not going to pretend that I think that she's a particularly persuasive communicator. I don't find her persuasive in a lot of the things that she communicates, but the Prime Minister is setting the direction of what the party, what the government is talking about. So if you want to blame somebody for a lack of message, if you want to blame somebody for a lack of narrative, that's the Prime Minister that has to own that. And to try to pass the buck off and say, all of our problems are because Minister Freeland isn't able to communicate is not just, humiliating, insulting. It's just also out to lunch. I don't think anybody believes that, whether they like Minister Freeland or don't. I think people, whether they like her or not, were like, this was not a Prime Minister who understands his part in what is going wrong with this government. It's somebody who's trying, again, to blame somebody else. And what's interesting maybe that I would just add is the fact that the Prime Minister and his team were surprised by this on Monday, after telling her this on Friday, is astounding to me. And they've done this to particularly women ministers now 3 times, and have been surprised when those ministers have said, no, sir, let me clear the record here.
Right. If you have to do an interview in the style of Fortnite Friday, what game and who would you want to interview? Ooh. Probably like one of a sort of like a survival, like not Minecraft, maybe Valheim or something similar to that, where there's like you gotta craft and survive and gather resources, but there's some sort of like swarm mechanic that you have to defend against. That would probably be fun. Because there's two answers. There's who I think I could maybe get, and who would be like a way up there one. Maybe play like competitive, like maybe a competitive real-time strategy against Polyev. That would be an interesting one. Like a maybe like a 1v or like a 2v2 or a 1v1 on like maybe like Total War or something. Yeah, something like that. Like maybe like something like that. Or like play like League of Legends with someone. I feel like it'd be Matthew Green would be entertaining from the NDP. Play like a party, play like Mario Party with like Francois Philippe Champagne. That would be funny. There's a couple of them you could do that would be funny. So I need to get the sugar. Spider eyes. Interesting. What can I make with that? Nothing? Nothing? Alright, fine. Whatever. Fine then. Think I care? I wonder if you can make deep slip. No, you can't. Needs to be stone. Need a couple of swords. 2, 3. 2 more pickaxes. Bunch of 3 more axes. One more shovel. So much gravel. Oh, I don't even need that shit anymore. Bunch of nether bricks. Take shears. Put the sugar back and the melons. Get that. Look at all my sugar cane too. No! Aha. Well, that's weird. Yo, I have milk.